Hi guys, it's me ChazRHD and welcome to the race watch along today for the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix from the streets of Baku that begins in, as you can see, about 30 minutes time. Hopefully you guys are doing well after yesterday's manic day of qualifying where we have, as I'll show later right before the race starts, a very surprising grid, I think we have to say, for the Grand Prix. I did not expect the grid that we have for this race to actually be the grid going into the Grand Prix. Plenty of battles we're going to have for the lead, of course, between three different teams at least. A great midfield battle as well as normal. It's just going to be a very interesting race at the very least, and I think we definitely will have a safety car in this Grand Prix. If you look at what's happened so far this weekend in, the F1 sessions and also look at the F2 races, I'd be very surprised if there was not, say, a safety car at the end of, or on the first lap, or a virtual safety car or something like that. I'd be very surprised if that did not happen. Again, I think we are in for a pretty good, again, very interesting Grand Prix. And hopefully you guys are doing well no matter what part of the world you are in currently, no matter what time it is, and hopefully with me and Nib you will watch along, and if you can't watch along the session you will listen along and keep updated as to what is happening in the race in Baku. But let me now, if you did miss out on qualifying and the results and what is mostly the starting grid for the Grand Prix today, let me just get into it quickly. So Charles Leclerc, pole position for the second race in a row. Very, very surprising, we have to say. We didn't think Ferrari were going to be right up there in the fight for pole position this weekend. I thought they would be decent, but I didn't think they would be right up there. It's also his first pole position in Baku. I think it's first pole position in Baku since he raced here in Formula 2, or GP2 back then, I think. Lewis Hamilton second, Max Verstappen third. What a top three that is. And then you've got Gasly fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth. Lando Norris qualified in sixth, but he will start ninth because he stayed out on circuit when he wasn't supposed to under red flag conditions. So he incurred a 3-place penalty. So Sergio Perez will start in sixth place. Tsunoda 7th, Alonso 8th, then Norris will start in 9th with Bottas in 10th, and the rest of the order is Vettel, Ocon, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin, and at the very back is Lance Stroll and Antonio Giovinazzi. Of course, both in qualifying yesterday crashed out before they even could do a lap. But now let's get into the two main teams, of course, fighting for this year's World Championship, who are going to be very close in the battle for victory in this Grand Prix today. For Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, it was a great result yesterday, at least for Lewis Hamilton. For Valtteri Bottas, it was terrible, and I think Bottas will have quite a struggle in the Grand Prix today to get any meaningful points. But for Lewis Hamilton, it's going to be a very important Grand Prix because the Red Bull this weekend has looked very quick. The Mercedes, or at least his Mercedes car, is in, I think, pretty decent shape for race victory. It's got a good low drag setup that's really going to help him if he needs to overtake or defend. Overtake, of course, Leclerc, defend from Max Verstappen. And, of course, we know how great he is anyway. So I think Lewis Hamilton, again, this is a big day for him because if he can, at a Grand Prix where Max Verstappen really should be getting the win here, if Lewis Hamilton can instead get the race win and take points off of Max Verstappen and get back into the lead of the championship going into the next race in Paul Ricard, this would be a big result for Lewis Hamilton, especially after the Monaco Grand Prix, which was such an embarrassment, quite frankly, for the Mercedes team. So big day for Hamilton, a big day for Mercedes. I'm sure they'll be basically flawless today, as they normally are in normal conditions. And I think, Lewis Hamilton going to be very, very hard for Red Bull and Max Verstappen to beat, but they definitely can beat him in the Grand Prix today. Max Verstappen, up until qualifying, looked as though he was definitely the man to get pole position, but in the end, yes, the red flag did not help him at the end, but he didn't really put in a good enough first attempt either. in the first part of Q3. So Verstappen not quite doing the job in qualifying. I think definitely there is more speed in himself and the Red Bull car in the Grand Prix. And I think really in this race, it's going to be a 50-50 between Hamilton and Verstappen in terms of who wins. It's going to come down to, very critical moments such as the start of the race. If there's a pit stop that goes wrong, a very important, great overtake, for example. I think it will come down to stuff like that, honestly, when it comes to who is going to win out of the two, because it's so close between the two that if Max Verstappen is going to win, then he's going to have to, provide some great driving today for everyone to see. And he's going to have to pull off, I think, a great overtake on track, really, to beat Lewis Hamilton in today's Grand Prix. And of course, Sergio Perez, he does have the speed, and Red Bull do have the speed. And Sergio Perez, I think maybe later on in the Grand Prix, might be able to play a factor somehow in the race result in terms of what happens with the podium finishes. So we'll definitely look out for Sergio Perez. Of course, he's got a great record in Baku. He's had a podium here in 2016, 2018. Probably could have had a podium or even a race win in 2017 had his teammate not bounced him into the wall. So Perez is in, I think, as long as he maintains his speed that he had up until qualifying and the Red Bull car is in good shape, then Perez should be definitely strong looking in this Grand Prix. But yeah, for Max Verstappen, he's going to have to kind of do what he did at the Spanish Grand Prix at the start of that race, when he, dived down the inside of Lewis Hamilton. He's going to have to do something like that, I think, if he's going to win the race, because I think as long as Lewis Hamilton maintains track position, yes, the slipstream down that pit straight in DRS, it will be powerful, but I think it'll be so close between the two that I still think it will be pretty hard to overtake Lewis Hamilton, especially, again, with Hamilton having a lower drag setup. And finally, Ferrari, of course, Charles Leclerc on pole position. Laurent Mekies, I think the sporting director of Ferrari, has actually come out and said that they don't expect to win the Grand Prix today because they think Hamilton and Red Bull just have way too much race pace for them. And I'd have to agree. Charles Leclerc was even, very surprised himself by getting pole position because he didn't see really Ferrari getting into that position. But they have great lap, even though it wasn't that well of a driven lap, I guess you could say. The actual lap time itself was pretty great compared to everyone else. So, great job by Charles Leclerc yesterday. And I think his aim has got to be a podium. If he could win the race today, it would be one hell of a drive. Because again, the competition behind him and the pace of Hamilton and Verstappen is going to be so great that it might be tough for Leclerc even to hang on until the first pit stop, and first and probably only pit stops come around for the Grand Prix today. And Carlos Sainz, will see what he can do. I think Sainz, honestly, today will be fighting probably Perez and Gasly for 4th, 5th and 6th like he was in qualifying. Hopefully can do better than that, but I think most likely that is what Carlos Sainz is going to do. But Ferrari today really should be coming away from this Grand Prix with, I would say 20 odd points, and hopefully for them, from their point of view, coming away with 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. Just want to bring Nib in and get your thoughts on the battle for victory today between Hamilton and Verstappen, also Leclerc in there. What do you think the keys are today then, Nib, for that battle, and who do you think, honestly, is the favourite going into this Grand Prix out of Verstappen, Hamilton and Leclerc?
Jeez, that's a very difficult question, but you already know my sort of thoughts. Is that guy's just been rejected for a Lewis Hamilton selfie? You've just seen on the coverage. That's quite funny. I mean, obviously, if they can't get past Leclerc on the first lap, then really it's whoever can get past Leclerc as quick as possible and not sort of get held up behind Leclerc. So if Hamilton gets ahead and then Verstappen gets held up behind Leclerc, assuming that's the scenario, then you'd have to say that Hamilton would be in the box seat. I mean, really, whoever can first get ahead of Leclerc. I mean, imagine if both of them get ahead of him on the first lap. I don't know, Chaz. Anything could happen. As I've said to you beforehand, I think there might be a little bit of contact today between Verstappen and Hamilton. Now, listen, I don't know what degree of contact that will be. We could just have a little bit of wheel touching, which is still contact. So I'm counting. I'll be counting that. But I think we're going to see some contact, and we've actually had a few offs already. I think Ricciardo went wide at turn 16, so the last real corner, and then going into turn 15, George Russell nearly spun it before the actual corner. So yeah, I think conditions might be a little bit difficult out there for the drivers today, and it has been very windy all weekend long in Baku.
It has a bit, and also today, which I think will help with the tyres, is it's a bit cooler today than it was yesterday. Even though the sun has come out more so now, it's still pretty hot. It's not cold or anything. It's not like I remember 2018 when we raced in Baku. It was freezing cold compared to other races we went to that season. But it's a bit cooler than yesterday, and I think that will help the tyres today. And I think, honestly, in the race today, we will only see most likely one pit stop, because I just think you're going to lose too much if you take that second stop. If there's a safety car at the right time, then yeah, I can see people going for it. But I think most likely we're in for a one-stop Grand Prix today. And I think certainly for Hamilton and Verstappen, I'd be expecting them and probably Leclerc to be coming in around, say, lap 15 to lap 20 or lap 22 at the absolute latest, because they are starting, of course, on used soft compound tyres. Also, just to let you guys know that Nib let me know right before we started, Max Verstappen has changed his tyres from, the set he qualified on in Q2. But do not think that he's on a fresh set of tyres, because he's not. He's just put on another used set. So he still has the disadvantage of a used set compared to, the people who are on a fresh set of tyres outside, of course, the top 10. But now we'll get into the upper midfield teams. McLaren, 9th and 13th on the grid. Well, 6th, of course, it was in qualifying for Norris. I think Lando Norris can definitely get, say, 6th or 7th in this Grand Prix. I don't think Norris will be able to get any higher than that, because I think it's just simply starting too far back from anywhere close to a great result, which would be really, I'd say, for McLaren, a top 5 finish for this Grand Prix. So I think, honestly, 6th or 7th is the best Norris can do, considering that penalty he got. And for Daniel Ricciardo, of course, starting 13th, very disappointing crash yesterday, and his, of course, result, very, very disappointing. I think he can score points, though, because the McLaren down the straights is pretty quick. And also, Daniel Ricciardo in the races does tend to be pretty good as well. So I think McLaren should really be aiming for a double points finish, and they've got to hope, really, that Ferrari do, suffer some kind of reliability trouble, because I'd be very surprised. I mean, the gap's only 2 points between them in McLaren's favour at the moment. I'd be very surprised if Ferrari did not take 3rd in the constructors away from McLaren today. So yeah, double points finish, probably the aim there at McLaren. I'll just quickly go through Aston Martin and AlphaTauri, and Alpine as well. Aston Martin starting, of course, P11 with Sebastian Vettel. I think Vettel, if you actually look at his sector times and speed traps from qualifying, he should be making some overtakes today, because he was 2nd quickest in the final sector in qualifying yesterday, and had one of the highest, I think, top speeds as well. So look out for Sebastian Vettel also, who had to start on whatever tyre he wants to, so that will help massively in his performance later on in the Grand Prix. So look out for Vettel, because he might, yet again, like in Monaco, come up with a great performance and get a very surprising result in the Aston Martin. And honestly, in qualifying yesterday, had there not been a red flag for Daniel Ricciardo, I think Sebastian probably would have got into Q3 and may have even got in the top 8 on the grid yet again, just like he did in Monaco. Lance Stroll, of course, starting at the back. Yes, you can overtake him, Baku, but I think it is too much to expect, honestly. Stroll coming from 19th into the points. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think he can probably get up to, say, 12th. But again, a points finish from 19th, that's going to be pretty hard, I think, for the Canadian. And then for AlphaTauri, of course, Pierre Gasly, 4th on the grid. What a result, only 0.02 of a second slower than Max Verstappen in qualifying. And, you know, with Nib saying, you know, Hamilton and Verstappen, he thinks there'll be contact. If there is meaningful contact and they have to pit for damage or they both are out of the race, Pierre Gasly, if that does happen, could easily win the race because I think he has the pace also to possibly upset, say, Ferrari and Charles Leclerc because the AlphaTauri has been very quick this weekend and Gasly, of course, still driving at a phenomenal level, so we'll have to watch out for Pierre Gasly. And I think, honestly, AlphaTauri are probably going to be aiming for, say, 5th or 6th in this Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda, of course, starts from 7th. Great to see him in the top 10. His best qualifying of his Formula 1 career so far after the trouble he's had in the last few races. And yeah, hopefully he has a good Grand Prix today. And I'd be very surprised, honestly, he did not finish in the points because, again, the AlphaTauri is looking as though it's probably, say, the 4th best car this weekend. And we'll just quickly go to Alpine. Fernando Alonso starting in 8th. Great to see that as well. His biggest weakness has been the single lap speed. Now he's got that sorted. It should be him on for a good race result. And hopefully for Alpine that is the case because this weekend I don't think they were thinking, and I definitely wasn't thinking, that Alpine were going to be that good this weekend. But 8th and 12th on the grid is a pretty good result for them, and I think it's actually better than what they managed in Monaco, where I thought they would be a bit stronger. So very good result there for Alpine. I think honestly their fight will be with, say, Ricciardo, Vettel, Ocon. Well, Ocon, of course, same team, but you know what I mean. When it comes to Fernando Alonso, I think his fight will be with drivers behind. I'd be very surprised if he could make progress from 8th on the grid because I don't think the Alpine quite has the race pace of, say, the McLaren of Lando Norris behind, or even, of course, the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas. And we'll quickly go through the final couple teams here. Alfa Romeo, of course, Raikkonen starting 14th and Giovinazzi starting at the very back. They'll be in the fight for points with Raikkonen. I mean, Raikkonen has very good race pace, as we already know. I just don't think Alfa Romeo quite have the speed compared to, say, Aston Martin, Alpine, McLaren to really get into the points in this Grand Prix. But I think definitely Raikkonen has a decent chance of getting into the points. So for Williams, they have to hope, of course, for chaos from 15th and 16th on the grid. It can happen here in Baku. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully Russell has a better Sunday than he's had so far. Like Nib said, having some trouble on the way to the grid, but he is all fine for the start now. And there you go, that is the grid. And of course, Haas are going to be at the back and probably causing the first safety car today. But Nib, I'll just come to you after I've just gone through the midfield there. Who are you expecting, if there's a surprise result, who would you expect that from? Say Gasly, or do you think Norris can come through from 9th on the grid to get another great result?
Daniel Ricciardo's winning the Grand Prix. No, he's not. He's definitely not winning the Grand Prix. I mean, if he does, there'll be many shoeies had over the next few days. I think Sergio Perez would get a podium today. I mean, we was just speaking about this before. I mean, I actually wouldn't think it'd be an awful amount of a surprise, but I mean, he's been really strong all weekend, not too far off Verstappen in most of the practice sessions. The Red Bull's certainly very strong around here, so it wouldn't awfully surprise me if Perez might sneak up onto the podium instead of Leclerc.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. And again, the Red Bull has been very quick this weekend, and I would say probably consistently more quick than the Ferrari this weekend. I think the only thing Leclerc can do to get the podium really is just be at his absolute best. I think that's what's going to get him the podium in this Grand Prix. But just want to ask you, before I come to the chat with the same question, what are you going to go for with your top 5 prediction for the race? I know it's very hard because anyone could probably finish in the top 5 today out of the top, say, 10. But who are you going to go for?
All right. I'm gonna. I think Verstappen's gonna win, followed by Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, and then probably Bottas or Sainz for that 5th place.
Right. And then
I don't expect that to be true, by the way. I think who knows? Vettel might finish 5th or some badness.
Yeah, it is possible. For my top 5, I'm going to go Hamilton first. The reason I'm going to go Hamilton first is because I think he will just, when he really needs to, make an important move, put in a very important lap, I just think he will have just about enough to hold off Max Verstappen, and I do think Verstappen will rue him not getting pole position yesterday and not putting in a good enough first attempt yesterday. I think Hamilton will take it. It'll be close, though. Only a second or two, I think, will separate the two at the end of the Grand Prix. Okay, say kind of similar to Bottas and Hamilton at the last Baku Grand Prix, where it was about a second separating them. I think it'll be very similar here, but Hamilton will come out on top this time. And then Verstappen second, and then I'm going to go Leclerc third. The reason is because I think he's driving so well at the minute, and also I think with Sergio Perez, I just think Perez will have a bit too much work to do to get Leclerc, because remember, he does have to get past Gasly and Sainz first, and I think that will take time. So yeah, I think Perez will finish in 4th behind Charles Leclerc 3rd, and then 5th, I'm going to go Pierre Gasly just ahead of Carlos Sainz, and then Norris in 7th, and then after that, who knows? I don't think Valtteri Bottas, by the way, will have a good race today, because I think he has a higher drag setup on, and his pace this weekend has been diabolical. So I think this could be a very similar race to what he had at Imola, where he had a poor qualifying, but seemingly was even slower in the race. So I think Bottas is going to have quite a poor Grand Prix. But guys, with about 7-8 minutes to go until the Grand Prix gets underway here in Baku, put in the live chat right now, who do you think will win today's Grand Prix, and who are you going for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th? Let me know in the live chat right now, and I'll make sure to read out your comments, as many of them as I can, before the formation lap starts again in about 6 or 7 minutes time. Just want to say, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, as we will be doing a qualifying and race watch along for every race remaining in 2021. So don't forget to subscribe. Again, bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe there, or go to my channel page and do it there. And whilst you're there, make sure to hit the notifications bell, and don't forget to smash the like button and share this stream and channel everywhere you can. But I think I'll start to read out some predictions. By the way, great to see JB in the chat. I think he's the first person I can see with a prediction. He says that it'll be Verstappen first, Perez second, Norris third, Leclerc 4th, and Gasly 5th, and then says very bold, I know. Dylan Forrestal says Alonso, Perez, Gasly, and Lewis Hamilton and Max 3-way crash at the start. Stephen Mooney says Max, Perez, Hamilton, Gasly, Leclerc. Got a couple people there going for, or 3 people there, I think, in the chat going for Lewis Hamilton. Eugene Kelly goes for Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen. Blade goes for an entire finishing order that he thinks will happen. He's going for Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Perez, and then the rest of his top 10 that he thinks it'll be is Norris, Bottas, Gasly, Alonso, and Tsunoda. Stephen O'Donnell says Max. Bakang says Leclerc. Oliver says Leclerc/Ferrari. Aline says Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, and Lando Norris. EC says Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez. Brody says Russell in the points. Hopefully he can. It's been a long time coming in that Williams. He's had so many chances to nick a point, and it just hasn't come off for him. Even this season in Spain, he looked as though he's going to get a point, but his tyres hit the cliff. Well else? Imola, of course. He was in a great position and then had the crash with Bottas. Also, Imola last year, he probably would have finished in 9th place, but had his terrible accident. Hopefully, if there is chaos, he can be somewhere in there, not be involved in the chaos itself. Astro Stevo says Leclerc to win over Hamilton and Sainz. Got a couple Verstappen ones in there. Rowan says Gasly, Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, Perez. High Top says Leclerc, Gasly, Checo. Antipas, I think it is, says Verstappen, Leclerc, and Norris for his top 3 in the Grand Prix today, as they're just on the TV broadcast, if you're wondering, just going through the F1 intro phase. So yeah, formation lap should be getting underway in about 2 to 3 minutes time. Let me find some other comments here. Any other predictions? Again, keep them coming for the last 2 or 3 minutes before we get to the formation lap, and I will read out as many as I can. Maurizio says, let the best win this Grand Prix. Martian says, Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez. I got one there saying Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name because it's too difficult. Dude Sage says Leclerc, Verstappen, Gasly. Kuba says Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz. One thing that's good to see, though, is that the predictions are very mixed up from you guys. It seems as though a lot of you think Hamilton, a lot of you think Verstappen, and some of you think Leclerc. So that's good to see. And I think, honestly, like I said, coming into this race after yesterday's qualifying, I think between Hamilton and Verstappen, it is basically a 50-50 between the two. Leclerc, though, does still have a decent chance because he is on pole position. And, of course, pole position, best place to start from. Michael Arvin donates $4.99, saying, thank you, Chaz, admin and followers. Smash a like button hard. Max, Hamilton, Perez, and Norris is his top 4. Thank you very much for that. Rooksfoot says Hamilton, Gasly, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz. Verstappen damaged through contact. Cryptic says Tsunoda, not Norris, Bottas. Got another Verstappen one there. Zotal says Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris. Dude Sage also says, I think 2 red flags, 1 in the first 3 laps. Let's hope not. Because it'd have to be,
let's hope not.
It'd have to be something pretty major. And I don't really want to be tempting fate there.
We'd run out of filler content for us.
Right, let me find a couple more and then we'll get on to this Grand Prix. Prakash says Leclerc and Hamilton good fighters. And I think, yeah, everyone can definitely predict a safety car. That's for sure, as KG is saying in the chat. And also Keith Haas saying you can't write with Hamilton, and he goes Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, same top 3 as me. But now I will get rid of this stuff and get up the stuff here. So, of course, it is a 51-lap Grand Prix. It says lap 0, obviously, because we are about to start the formation lap. Once we get lined up on the grid, ready for the start of the race, then I will, of course, change it to lap 1. Yeah, formation lap should be underway in a moment. Also, I'll let you guys know as to what the grid is for the... or not what the grid is, what the starting tyres are. So Vettel, Ocon, Ricciardo outside the top 10 are starting on the softs. So the 2 Haases and Giovinazzi. Stroll is on the hard compound tyre, trying to replicate what I did in Monaco. And Raikkonen and the 2 Williamses are on the medium. So only 4 cars not on the soft compound tyre to start with. As the formation lap gets underway, I think not right now, but in just a moment. And it gets underway right now. So, as Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, of course, get away at the front on this formation lap. Should take about 2 minutes to get through the formation lap itself. Of course, it's about a minute 45 or minute 46 probably the lap times we're going to see in the Grand Prix. So that's, the quickest you can go. So again, we're probably going to take 2 to 2.5 minutes to get through the formation lap here in Baku. So prepare, guys, for what is going to be a very interesting and possibly chaotic Grand Prix, as the predicted pit stop strategy also indicates a one-stop race for all. If you're going to pit from the soft compound tyre onto the hard, then lap 11 to 15 it says, and then from medium to hard is lap 16 to 23. I think they'll try and go longer than that, though. I think they'll probably try and go to at least, on the soft, say at least lap 15 before coming into the pits, just to make sure they clear some traffic behind so they don't come out, in a massive gaggle of cars, as Leclerc and Hamilton are just about to come through the castle section, as Valtteri Bottas is obviously behind Norris in the order on this formation lap and is currently about to come through to the castle section. And reminder, Max Verstappen, as it shows on the TV broadcast, Max Verstappen is leading the championship by 4 points. If Lewis Hamilton wants to lead back, he has to win the Grand Prix. As simple as that. If he wins the Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton will reclaim the lead of the World Championship. But if Hamilton finished in second and Verstappen third, and Hamilton did not get the fastest lap, then Verstappen would still lead by a point. So it's going to be very close between the two in the race, and it might be even closer in the championship standings at the end of this Grand Prix. And also Red Bull leading the Constructors' Championship by 1 point from Mercedes, and given who is lining up where on the grid, you'd have to say Red Bull at the minute looking likely to extend their lead with 2 cars in the top 6, with Bottas down in 10th. What's happened?
You've just jinxed it now. Well, no, nothing's happened, but you've just jinxed it now, saying that they're in a good position. Now something's going to happen.
No, my luck. One of the Red Bulls would be out at the first corner. We'll have to see.
And there it is.
As Leclerc, Hamilton, and Verstappen on this formation lap are now coming up now to the starting grid. And the rest, of course, follow. Very, very short run down to turn 1. I think it's the shortest on the grid. Pretty sure it is. So making a move for the lead is pretty hard in Baku. You have to basically get a great start compared to the guy alongside you straight away. Because diving down the inside with, not much acceleration time from when you've set off is quite difficult, as about half the grid now are lining up on the grid for the race in Baku, as Ocon and Ricciardo have lined up there. Bit of a wait for Kimi Räikkönen to line up, and now we've got Lance Stroll on the hard compound tyre, interestingly again, lining up in 19th place. We'll see what Stroll can do on that tyre. Maybe he can pull off another amazing strategy. And here we go for the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Hopefully, it will be a chaotic Grand Prix. 5 lights, and away we go here in Baku. And as Charles Leclerc maintained the lead, I think he has, down into turn 1. Yes, he has, clearly. Hamilton ahead of Verstappen. And Sergio Perez has made a move on Carlos Sainz for 5th place. He's down the inside at turn 2. Sainz locks up his outside front quite heavily. And you've now got an Alpine, I think, up in 7th position, as Perez now gets in the slipstream of Pierre Gasly, as the top 3 are away in the order they started. And Perez right round the outside of Pierre Gasly. What a move by Sergio Perez. And just like that, he is immediately in play now for race victory in this Grand Prix, with 2 brilliant overtakes on Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly. Sebastian Vettel there has made a decent start. I've seen he's ahead of Bottas and the 2 McLarens as well, as Leclerc Hamilton and Verstappen now come through the castle section. The two McLarens very close on track. Ricciardo right behind Norris, who's just ahead of the two Alfa Romeos. Giovinazzi's had a great start, as he normally does, as they now come through the back end of the pack through that castle section. And Leclerc leading, but not by much, as Hamilton is definitely within a second already towards the end of this first lap of racing, as Perez is still, of course, in fourth place. You've got Gasly in fifth, Carlos Sainz in sixth, Alonso is up to seventh ahead of Tsunoda eighth, and Sebastian Vettel, as I said, good start for him. He's up to ninth. Bottas is in 10th with Esteban Ocon in P11. As now we begin lap 2, and Lewis Hamilton getting right in the slipstream down to the first corner, but not close enough yet for the move. But Nib, what an important start for Sergio Perez, and that move on Gasly especially was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, two mega moves. That one, the move he made on Carlos Sainz was certainly helped by as we've got Ocon holding position there on Norris. Or Ricciardo got quite close to the wall on the exit turn. When he's sending it down the inside of Lando Norris, and Daniel Ricciardo up ahead of Lando Norris into P12. I don't think I was going to be saying that this early on. As who's that in the pits? It's George Russell into the pits. He's gone onto the hard compounded tyres. So I assume he's had some sort of puncture. As I was just about to say before the action kicked off, the reason why Perez got past Sainz was because Gasly and Sainz went side by side, and he got up the inside into turn 2. And then what a move he did make around the outside of Pierre Gasly into turn 3. And so that was a mega move.
It absolutely was, and we're just seeing a replay of the start. Lance Stroll making contact there with one of the Haas's. I think it's Mick Schumacher. Yes, it was. Hopefully no damage, rather, for Lance Stroll there. As Hamilton right in the slipstream of Charles Leclerc towards the end of lap 2, as they now begin the final sector, which of course is just full throttle, and Hamilton already within half a second, and I think Hamilton here is going to make the move. Verstappen is only a second behind, but surely Lewis Hamilton is going to get the move done, and yes, right in the slipstream, that low drag setup working so well, and Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Baku Grand Prix, and Leclerc will try to come back, but surely he will not be able to get back ahead. He does not. Lewis Hamilton leads in Baku, and now Max Verstappen has to get ahead. And importantly for Hamilton, did that without DRS. So that is great for him, as Antonio Giovinazzi has now pitted. And by the way, Nib, not to dampen your spirits, but Lando Norris is back ahead of Daniel Ricciardo for 12th position. As just seen a replay here of Max Verstappen diving down the inside of turn 15. And very weird there. It didn't seem like he locked up. He just went down the inside of the corner, which he did. I remember back in the 2018 race a couple times. Then a replay of Hamilton past Leclerc. And that is so important, Nib, isn't it, for the race? Now he's got clean, fresh air in front of him and is looking very strong.
Yeah, it did indeed. It looked like he was using a huge amount of his battery off the exit of 16 to make sure he was close once they got through the Porsche curves. And as you can see, he's nearly a second ahead of Charles Leclerc already, and now he's a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. So he's done a classic bolt, much like Sebastian Vettel would do, to make sure he's out of the DRS. Well, it's hanging just about within that second window, so let's see if Hamilton is out of the DRS.
We'll have to see. Verstappen not really close enough at the moment. Hamilton is just about over a second ahead. Verstappen not really close enough at the minute, it looks as though, to make a move. But now he'll get the DRS, and he's now starting to gain in the slipstream, as Esteban Ocon has lost a couple positions down the order. And Max Verstappen now DRS. Will he go down the inside of Charles Leclerc? No, he will not. Leclerc holds on to that position on the beginning of lap 4 out of 51. He does do, though, the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 48 flat, as Sergio Perez only a second behind, hanging in there. And Esteban Ocon, I think, has a problem, because he's dropped now down to 18th. Ocon in massive trouble. Now he's in the pit, so I'm going to assume he's had some kind of issue, because he would have, if he was going to drop down the order, he would have done that by coming into the pits anyway. And yep, comes in, and yep, there is clearly a problem. And Esteban Ocon, I think, is out of this race. Such a shame, because had a decent start to the race, getting ahead of the two McLarens, or being ahead of the two McLarens. But he is out of the race, as Lance Stroll, from 19th on the hard compound tyre, now up to 13th. Just overtook Kimi Räikkönen, did Lance Stroll. That's now the two Haas's in 16th and 17th. Here's a replay of Ocon at turn 16. And, yep, smoke coming out the back, and obviously has lost power. And Ocon out of the Grand Prix, as Leclerc looks as though he's just about within a second of Lewis Hamilton here. Now he's fallen outside of a second, but Verstappen not close enough. He's 9/10 of a second behind us. Now come onto the pit straight, as there's now a yellow flag in sector 3. Now it's gone green. Don't know who that was for, but now got Giovinazzi and Russell to 18th and 19th, and again Esteban Ocon out of the race. But Verstappen not close enough, as Hamilton does the fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.4 for Lewis Hamilton on now lap 5 out of 51, and Verstappen has to get past here. He's not that far behind Lewis Hamilton. He's not, 3 or 4 seconds behind, but the longer he is behind, and of course Leclerc now has DRS in Hamilton, the longer he is behind, he'll hurt his tyres more, and eventually he will start to lose time to Hamilton, as thankfully the pack behind not too far behind, as Perez about 1.5 seconds behind Verstappen, Gasly a further 1.5 seconds behind him, and then Carlos Sainz is almost 2 seconds behind Pierre Gasly. The closest battle on track, funnily enough, is the battle for the lead. Right now, Hamilton only 3/4 of a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. Be interesting to see if Leclerc can keep up with Hamilton and possibly go for a move if he can stay within DRS long enough. I doubt it, to be honest, because again, of the straight line speed of the Mercedes in the final sector, as Sebastian Vettel just over a second behind just over a second behind Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. And they now, the front of the pack, come through into the final sector. And Hamilton has pulled over a second to Leclerc, so Hamilton will not, I think, lose out to Leclerc. We'll have to see if Leclerc does get DRS here. And he actually does, which is good for him, as they're now about to begin lap 6, and Leclerc will gain quite a bit of time coming down to turn 1, as Max Verstappen now does the fastest lap of the race. A 1 minute, I'm going to guess 47 something. I don't know exactly what it is. It's a 47.1 for Max Verstappen, but these three nib are so close, and this already looks like, maybe with Perez in there as well, a 4-car battle for victory here.
Yeah, indeed. Leclerc's doing a very good job at the moment, to be honest, to keep Hamilton quite honest. And the detection point is like, I think it's somewhere around the Porsche curve, so it's not like immediate. It's not before like turn 16 or anything. So if Leclerc's able to use a little bit of his battery to make sure he's within a second. So yeah, I mean, this has been a really good start, and I mean, Gasly's only 4.4 seconds off the lead. The pace is not slow whatsoever, a little bit further back, but it's absolutely crucial for Leclerc these days within a second of Hamilton, because as soon as he loses that DRS, you know that Max Verstappen will be coming flying past.
Yep, he will. They actually just showed that he had the highest top speed there, did Max Verstappen so far in this race. So yeah, Max is looking strong if he can get within a second, of course, like he is now, of Charles Leclerc, but make sure and hope that Leclerc is not within a second of Hamilton, which he is briefly at the moment, but will that remain the case as they now? And I think it will. I don't think Leclerc will have DRS on Hamilton this time. He's 1.2, maybe now 1.3 seconds behind Hamilton as they come through the Porsche curves there. And now, as they're about to begin lap 7, Max Verstappen opens the DRS, and can Max Verstappen here get the move done down to turn 1? Leclerc defends to the inside. Verstappen goes round the outside, and clearly overtakes. And there you go, Max Verstappen up to second as Yuki Tsunoda about to put manners on Fernando Alonso for the second time this season. And he does it. Tsunoda is now up into 7th position. But as I said, Max Verstappen up to second. And now we have the battle. Hamilton versus Verstappen now for, and maybe Leclerc as well, if Leclerc can hang on with DRS. But it should be Hamilton versus Verstappen now for victory, as they are just showing a replay of how easy that overtake was down into turn 1 with the DRS. And we'll see how quickly Max Verstappen can get within a second of Lewis Hamilton. He's just over a second behind. Perez now clearly within a second of Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc at the moment, if it was to stay the way it is, in terms of the gap from him to Verstappen, Leclerc would have DRS on Max Verstappen going down the pit straight. Leclerc, though, is slowly but surely losing time.
Well, I did foreshadow that move quite well, didn't I, of Verstappen on Leclerc. The detection point is just out of the final Porsche curve. So, yeah, if you're within a second quite late, you should be good. Now, I think Perez might actually be able to get past here. Maybe not, because I think Leclerc will still have the DRS maybe, but Perez is very close.
I don't think Leclerc will have DRS. We'll have to see. We're not seeing the gaps at the moment, unfortunately, but I don't think Leclerc will have the DRS, and no, he does not. So Sergio Perez now on lap 8 out of 51 overtakes Charles Leclerc. Now Sergio Perez up to 3rd and does the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, of course, with DRS. So Sergio Perez up to 3rd. Sebastian Vettel has just overtook Fernando Alonso, and now Bottas has as well. And now Ricciardo has. If Alonso has not come into the pits, then I'm afraid maybe Alpine have a... no, Alonso has come into the pits with Lando Norris. Norris already in on lap 8 out of 51. That is very early for a first pit stop. Maybe this might be a 2-stop race. We'll have to see, as Alonso drops down, as Vettel now up to 8th, Bottas up to 9th, and now you've got Daniel Ricciardo just about in the points. Lance Stroll, who of course is on the hard compound tyre, is now up to 11th. He's looking pretty good actually, as Lance Stroll. He's only 3.5 seconds off points, and he's on a much harder compound of tyre compared to Daniel Ricciardo. So Lance Stroll is looking pretty good here, as Latifi is in 13th, and then you've got Schumacher and Mazepin 14th and 15th, and then Alonso and Norris in 16th and 17th position, and they come up to Mazepin first to overtake him, as Hamilton on lap 8 out of 51 is 1.3 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Perez is 3 seconds off the lead here on lap 8, which is pretty good from him, as we're now looking at Yuki Tsunoda in 7th and Sebastian Vettel in 8th. Vettel, as I said, very quick in the final sector, and Tsunoda will have to look in his mirrors, I think, for quite a long time in this Grand Prix, as Pierre Gasly now coming at Charles Leclerc. Looks as though Gasly is just over a second behind Leclerc, so Gasly might be able to get after Charles Leclerc there, as the battle continues, like I said, between Tsunoda and Vettel for that 7th and 8th position, and it's maintaining the gap is at 1.3 seconds. Perez slightly quicker, I think, on the last lap, as Mick Schumacher has just come into the pits, and Mazepin has just actually been overtaken by Fernando Alonso in the Alpine there. We'll have to see what the midfield teams do in response. They haven't responded yet, so we'll have to see what happens there, as Norris up to 16th, Giovinazzi 17th, and Russell 18th. Mick Schumacher will come out in what is last place, as Norris now gets his way past the Haas of Mazepin, and Verstappen now starting to close the gap. He's now just about over a second behind Lewis Hamilton on lap 9 out of 51. And like you said, Nib, with Gasly and the top 5 in general, only 6 seconds covering the top 5 on what is about to be lap 10. And they're all in play here, aren't they, for a podium or even a race victory, given the speed currently?
Yeah, Pierre Gasly's certainly keeping himself in a podium playing position here, especially if anything up front happens. But Hamilton's been on the team radio reporting these cars very, very pointy. And, so, if his car's very pointy, of course, that would be a result of his... that could risk his tyres sliding around. Who was that coming into the pits? That was Charles Leclerc coming into the pit lane, was it not? Yes, it was. Now, I'm a little bit behind you, so let's see what tyres
Hard
Leclerc's
compound.
going on. You'd assume they're hard. Yeah, and there it is. He's coming onto the hard tyre. But yeah, Verstappen's certainly hanging around within the 1 second margin, and I'd expect one of them to respond to this pit stop by Charles Leclerc.
They'll have to, because Leclerc, I mean, if the undercut is as powerful, and I think, honestly, it probably is, Lando Norris, interestingly, has just overtook Fernando Alonso for position. The Norris up into now 13th position. Charles Leclerc is actually now in 10th position. I'm just trying to update the order somewhat. So Stroll up to 9th, Leclerc 10th. Then you've got Raikkonen 11th, Tsunoda 12th. And yeah, Norris just overtook Fernando Alonso. Here's a replay of Charles Leclerc losing the rear end a bit on the pit exit, which is not really a surprise because as soon as you get back up to speed, you're turning left. So again, not surprised as Max Verstappen now within a second of Hamilton. And we'll have to see what these two do, like you said. Perez, though, got to look out for Perez. He's actually the quickest out of the top three. The gap from him to the lead was 3 seconds. It's now 2.5. Also, Gasly was 6.5 seconds behind. Now he's 5.5 seconds behind. So again, need to look out for those certain drivers because they are going to play a factor in this race. As Verstappen now does have DRS on Lewis Hamilton, but he is nowhere near close enough as Perez does now do another new fastest lap here on lap 11 of a 146.8 as Carlos Sainz now comes into the pits. So we'll see. He's going to go onto the hard compound tyre, but we're going to have to see in a moment whether Charles Leclerc on that compound, the hard compound, pitting that early, whether that actually is going to work for him. Very good pit stop, by the way, by the Ferrari team, as now Sebastian Vettel up to 5th, Bottas up to 6th. Of course, they haven't pitted yet. Ricciardo up to 7th. He hasn't pitted. Neither has Lance Stroll. And, of course, Leclerc comes out ahead of Carlos Sainz. Here's a replay of Norris going round the outside of Fernando Alonso at turn 1. And that was a good move because they were kind of equal going into the braking zone, but Lando just carried much more speed on the racing line into turn number 1. But actually, Sainz has come out, bad news for him, behind Raikkonen. So Raikkonen now into 10th, Sainz 11th, Tsunoda 12th, and then Norris is in 13th, Alonso 14th, and then Giovinazzi is 15th from Russell in 16th, Latifi 17th, and then Mick Schumacher is 18th, Mazepin 19th. Yellow flag in Sector 2. We'll have to see what it is. And it's Carlos Sainz. He's made a mistake, gone down the escape road. I think that's at the castle section. He's reversed back onto track. Thankfully, hasn't hit anyone. And Carlos Sainz, well, he's not out of a possible, as Lewis Hamilton now comes into the pits on lap 12, beginning of lap 12, he's not out of a possible points position, Sainz, because he's still in there, but that is a big blow to his race. Oh, Hamilton held up in the pit stop. That was a slow stop. About 2.5 seconds too slow as Gasly also comes into the pits, and hopefully for AlphaTauri, his pit stop will be quicker, but that... Go on.
Yeah, do you think they've pitted Hamilton and Gasly there thinking there was going to be a VSC, especially with Sainz down the escape road? And I must say, if you were looking at the gap, as Bottas has also come to the pits to go onto the hard compounded tyre, Leclerc wasn't exactly gaining any time whatsoever on Hamilton in the lead. The gap stayed about 24.8 seconds all time as Lando Norris is ahead of Valtteri Bottas.
He is. Yep, he has.
Yes,
He's jumped Bottas there. So Bottas, I think, still in a net points position. But Norris has jumped through. Hamilton is still ahead of Leclerc. By the way, Pierre Gasly has jumped Charles Leclerc for position. So Gasly is in a net 4th place at the moment as Carlos Sainz, here's a replay, locking the inside front, then locked both tyres and then went down the escape road. And yeah, he might have to come in again with that, as then he had to reverse out. But yeah, Max Verstappen now, this is him in a great position, because if he pits now and he gets the pit stop right, surely, and yeah, he will come in, surely Max Verstappen, as long as the pit stop goes well, he will come out in the lead of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as Sergio Perez does yet another fastest lap. Perez with some stunning speed here. And here we go, Verstappen into the pits. And that pit stop was basically perfect. We'll see what the time was in a moment. As Verstappen, 1.9 seconds, couldn't get any better than that. As we're on now, beginning of lap 13 out of 51. And Max Verstappen comes out of the pits and is ahead, clearly, of Lewis Hamilton by about 4 seconds. Massive advantage over Lewis Hamilton. And Max Verstappen is now in the net lead of the Baku Grand Prix. I told you it would come down to a critical moment like that, the pit stop phase or a start line overtake or whatever, and that's exactly how the positions have changed around. And Nib, if they have pitted Hamilton because they thought there was going to be a virtual safety car or whatever, then it has cost them massively now, hasn't it?
It has indeed. Well, it was all because of Pierre Gasly coming down the pit lane. It was all because of Pierre Gasly, so I assume Pierre Gasly's going to be getting a little bonus there. Wow, massive moment in this Grand Prix. Massive, massive moment. Did Hamilton have to get past people there on that lap? Because that maybe works a little bit more, because I wasn't expecting it to be 4 seconds.
I don't know. Again, Verstappen was about a second behind. He then lost 2.5 seconds, and I'm guessing maybe remember, Mercedes do have problems warming up their tyres, as now Sergio Perez comes into the pits, and honestly, I think Perez could jump Lewis Hamilton here, because he's, I think, got a gap over Lewis Hamilton as we're now at the beginning of lap 14 out of 51. And do Red Bull get the pit stop right? No, they do not. With Sergio Perez, it was about 2 seconds too long. Will that cost him to Lewis Hamilton? Vettel goes through. Vettel leading the Grand Prix currently as Lewis Hamilton does the fastest lap. And Sergio Perez, if he gets fired up quickly enough, yes! Sergio Perez is ahead of Hamilton, but Hamilton a lot warmer tyres. He might be able to make a move on him. We'll have to see, as Kimi Räikkönen also now comes into the pits. But Sergio Perez now under threat from Hamilton. Perez going to have to defend. Will Hamilton go down the inside? No, he will not. But Perez now into a net 2nd place. This is going absolutely brilliantly for the Red Bull team. They're in a net 1-2 position for the Grand Prix at the moment, as Yuki Tsunoda is now to 8th. Lando Norris, I just need to update some of the order. Lando Norris is up into 9th place. 10th is Bottas. Alonso has lost out massively. He's now down in P11. Daniel Ricciardo is in P12. And then Giovinazzi is in 13th, with Carlos Sainz in 14th, Raikkonen in 15th, and then Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin. But Nib, this is going absolutely to plan for Red Bull, and what a massive moment for them in both Drivers' and Constructors' Championships.
Well, how many times have we talked about this over the time we've been doing Watchalongs, Chazza? Red Bull not having the second car there in this fight. All of a sudden, they do here at Azerbaijan this weekend. And boom, here we go. Sergio Perez into what is effectively 2nd place ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And where is Valtteri Bottas? In P10. Bottas not performing this weekend, as I assume Vettel is going to come into the pits here. No, he doesn't, actually. But wow, such an important stop. Well, they didn't get the stop right, as Hamilton does have the DRS and is closing into turn 1. It's not quite close enough, is he? No, he's not. But Perez, I think he's going to be under a little bit of danger from Hamilton here if he doesn't build up this gap.
By the way, just to clarify, Sebastian Vettel has not pitted. So if you are a Vettel fan, then just please do calm down. He is leading and has led for a couple laps, but he has not pitted yet. I got to say, though, his pace is pretty good. If he pits now and has a good pit stop, he'll probably come out ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in what would be... he'd come out in 7th place at the moment. So his pace is very strong, Sebastian Vettel, driving wonderfully, just like he did in Monte Carlo. As Hamilton is 4 seconds behind Max Verstappen and is now 1.4 behind Perez, who is now pulling a gap over Hamilton. I have to say, I think Red Bull later on in this race might have to just tell Sergio Perez not to go too quickly, because you actually look, before Verstappen pitted, Perez was actually quicker than Verstappen in the few laps before the pit stop. So Perez might actually be right on the back of Verstappen soon enough. So I think they'll have to tell Perez to not go too quickly and get too ahead of himself, because, of course, they need Max Verstappen in P1 for the championship, as Vettel on this lap actually not that much slower at all than Max Verstappen. And if Vettel can continue going into the race like this with the speed he has, and possibly put on a medium compound tyre later on as he continues in the lead, as Hamilton on team radio, even though, well, Perez has done the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 45.8, Hamilton saying that Perez has got so much rear end in comparison to himself. As
well, that's no surprise with Hamilton's low downforce package, is it?
No, it's... yeah, to be expected. We thought in the early stages, and it did, in terms of him getting past Charles Leclerc, helped massively. But at the moment, not helping in the middle sector, as Daniel Ricciardo has just passed Fernando Alonso for 11th place, and Ricciardo about 4.5 seconds behind Bottas for the final points-paying position. Do need to remember, though, that Lance Stroll as well has not pitted. Both Aston Martins going deep into the Grand Prix, a lot deeper than other teams have. Here is a replay, I think, of Daniel Ricciardo. Probably the same type of overtake that he did, that Norris did to Alonso. This time, actually, down the inside for Ricciardo instead of around the outside for Lando Norris. But yeah, at the moment, Ricciardo looking good, possibly for a point. Will depend, though, on Lance Stroll, who is lapping very quickly on, remember, the hard compound tyre that he started on. The look out for Stroll, might end up very close towards the end of the Grand Prix, as now we are looking on lap 16 on the TV broadcast at Carlos Sainz within a second of Antonio Giovinazzi in the battle for 13th and 14th place. But at the moment, Sebastian Vettel leading again, has not pitted. Is 2.5 seconds clear of Max Verstappen now on lap 17, as Max Verstappen does a new fastest lap. Now Lewis Hamilton does a new fastest lap. Hamilton is not going to go anywhere. He's not going to give up, because he knows, around this track especially, anything can happen, and there is still plenty to fight for in this Grand Prix, as Sainz now should get DRS. Hamilton now, interestingly, about half a second. Now 0.6 of a second behind Sergio Perez, currently in the mid-sector of this lap. As Sainz has DRS, but is nowhere near getting past the Alfa Romeo of Giovinazzi, who also has driven pretty well. He's in 13th place, and of course started at the very back of the grid, and is currently ahead of his teammate by, I think, 8.5 or 9 seconds. So Antonio is looking good here, as Verstappen slowly but surely closing the gap to Vettel. And Verstappen has a 4.5 second lead over Hamilton, and about 3.5 second lead over Sergio Perez currently, with Stroll actually lapping pretty well. He's only still 4.5 seconds behind Hamilton, despite Stroll still being on the hard compound tyres that he started on, and Hamilton desperately trying to get past Sergio Perez. His setup will help in this final sector, but he's got to be within a second, really, and have the DRS ready to get a move done. He can't just rely on a good slipstream and having that lower drag setup to help him, and he does not have DRS this time, so Hamilton continuously losing time, and this is probably now, wouldn't you say, Nib, the battle to look at going forward for the race is Perez versus Hamilton, even though Perez is still pretty quick, because Verstappen looks as though, at the moment, I do stress at the moment because we're not even halfway through the race, Verstappen at the moment has the race sewn up. So yeah, Perez going to have to now do a job for Max Verstappen, wouldn't you say?
He certainly does, yeah. I think at the moment Verstappen's certainly got everything under control, but yeah, it's very crucial that Perez stays ahead of Hamilton here. But I think in this early stages of this stint, Hamilton's going to be pretty strong. But of course, with that very low downforce setup that the Mercedes is running, I think perhaps towards the back end of the stint, they might begin to struggle a little bit. We saw it almost when they're on the softs. Hamilton was starting to struggle a little bit just as they were coming in. I think just towards the end of the first sector, through turns 7 and 8, Verstappen was within a second through there. So yeah, I think tyre wear might be a little bit of an issue. And we all know Hamilton is the tyre whisperer, but I think even he might be starting to struggle today. But I mean, so just want to speak about Sebastian Vettel. His pace is very, very, very good at the moment. And by my calculations, it's 22 seconds or something like that for a pit stop. And I think that would put him around about Lando Norris and Valtteri Bottas.
Well, I think he was just behind, and here he comes. He's now coming into the pit, Sebastian Vettel. He was ahead of Norris and Bottas just about, and just behind Yuki Tsunoda. I think he will come out ahead of Tsunoda, and he should come out in 7th place. We'll have to see. Hopefully the pit stop goes well, as Verstappen now into the lead, of course, with Vettel into the pits, as Hamilton very close to Perez now, harrying him quite a lot, as Stroll, of course, is going to stay out because he started on the hard compound tyre, as now Gasly and Leclerc are through as well, and we'll see where Vettel comes out. And Sebastian Vettel has come out in 7th place, just like I said, and only 2.5 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. So Vettel, what a drive so far, but also in play for maybe 6th or even 5th in this Grand Prix. And again, let's not forget Lance Stroll, who is lapping very well at the moment, as Sergio Perez, it shows on the TV broadcast, is currently heading for 15 points and going, or not 15 points, heading for an extra 18 points rather, and is heading currently in the Drivers' World Championship, which has got to be really his aim for this season, with, of course, Hamilton and Verstappen up front. But at the moment, there is nobody that I can see within a second of anybody else. So there's no real battles out there. I think the closest battle at the moment
was Sainz and Giovinazzi.
Yeah, still got that in 13th and 14th. Then just trying to see if there's any others. I think Bottas is just hovering over a second behind Norris, so we'll have to look out for that. But Valtteri Bottas is miles away from where he should be. Lewis Hamilton gaining a lot in the slipstream and with his setup, but still down the pit straight, not within DRS of Sergio Perez, which is hampering his chances a lot of getting 2nd place, which he needs to, because at the moment, Max Verstappen, even though Hamilton does have the fastest lap, Max Verstappen, by the end of the Grand Prix, would be leading by 14 points if it did end the way it is currently. So we're now on lap 20 out of 51, so just 31 laps to go here in Baku, as we're now seeing on the little screen that Sainz is within a second still of Giovinazzi. Will he go for the move this time? Just don't think the Ferrari quite has enough speed down the pit straight. He feigns for a move down the inside as Carlos Sainz, but he's not going to get the move done. Perez saying on team radio that Hamilton is flying on the straights, which, yeah, that's pretty obvious, as Bottas now just about within a second of Lando Norris, so we need to look out for that and see. And now he's dropped just over a second behind, but he's getting close now to DRS on Norris, and we'll have to look out for that because, of course, very important in those points paying positions, as Hamilton still cannot get within a second here of Sergio Perez. And with Gasly and Leclerc, 2.8 seconds is separating them. as Gasly is also 2.8 seconds behind Stroll, as Hamilton just saying on team radio it's impossible to keep up with Perez in the middle sector, which again, like we've said, is down to setup. So Hamilton having to get the middle sector right if he's going to have to, or if he's going to get past. Perez, interestingly, is actually closing the gap to Max Verstappen. It's now on lap 21, about 3 seconds. I do think, though, Max Verstappen is probably just trying to look after his tyres, because remember, they did pit very early compared to when they probably wanted to have pit. So we do need to remember that, as Lando Norris now defending his position down into turn 1, and Bottas is on the outside, but he will not get the move done, but he will get a good run through on the exit. We'll have to see if he can do anything on the run down to turn 3. I'm going to guess not. And no, I don't think Bottas will be able to, but he is now starting to harry the McLaren of Lando Norris. And he does close at turn 3, but it's not by enough, and he now has to wait yet again until the pit straight. As Hamilton, of course, being cost massively by that pit stop, and now it's really hurting his chances because he's now stuck behind the person who is going to play a vital role for Red Bull in whether they win the championship. And of course, Perez, very hard to overtake. He's always very quick on the exit of corners. Very good at getting good traction out of corners. So it's always very hard to overtake Sergio Perez in that aspect. And will be pretty hard, as Hamilton already knows, to overtake Sergio Perez. As, by the way, just to update you guys, Lance Stroll is in 4th place. If you are just tuning in, has not pitted yet, and is on the hard compound tyre. Just trying to see where he would come out if he pitted. Probably behind Ricciardo, but ahead of Alonso. But it'd be probably a lot quicker than Ricciardo, to be honest. And probably overtaking him. So we'll have to see what happens there. As now, another chance for Valtteri Bottas, possibly to overtake Lando Norris. Bottas feigns a move down the inside, but we know he's not going to actually go for the move, because when does he ever do that? As Bottas, now into turn 2, is still not really close enough here. And very poor performance, I have to say, from Valtteri Bottas this weekend. I know the Mercedes car is not quite at it around this circuit, but Valtteri has been very, very poor. And I will admit, this year does feel like his final year at Mercedes, because he has had, I think, too many performances like this. And Nib, Mercedes, I think, like you said earlier, they just cannot afford to have Bottas down in 10th place. Kind of no disrespect to him, but in the Alex Albon type of position where he's nowhere near helping his teammate up front.
Yeah, you're spot on, and you even called it pre-race, saying that he could be in this sort of Imola position, and yeah, he's in 10th place. I mean, at Imola, he wasn't even in the points, was he? He was battling with Russell for a point, and yeah, you know, Russell might be known as Mr. Saturday, but we saw when he was in that car for the Sakir Grand Prix, when they had the short circuit, you know, when he's in that car, what he can do. And I think that will be certainly well in the minds of everyone at Mercedes, you know. And in previous years, Bottas has had very good starts to the season, which has secured his contract. And, well, it's been his worst tally of points in the opening, how many ever races were done so far. So, yeah, I think Bottas is certainly under pressure for his seat for this season, also for next season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if it keeps going this way, you'd have to say Russell is in a great position to inherit Valtteri Bottas' seat in a possible what could be swap deal of Bottas going back to the Williams team. Because honestly, if Bottas does leave Mercedes, I don't really see where else he could go in Formula One. He's a good driver, Bottas, but I think this year he just hasn't quite hit the mark for what he needs to do as Hamilton's teammate, as Carlos Sainz continues to be held up by Antonio Giovinazzi, but he just cannot get his way past. Now on the run down to turn 3 as DRS in a slipstream. Can he get the move done now? Giovinazzi defends to the inside. Carlos Sainz, will he go right round the outside? Yes, he will. Great move by Carlos Sainz. Thought there was going to be contact there, but there was not. And Carlos Sainz is up to 13th. And now his next possible victim is Fernando Alonso. As Sainz is up to 13th, and we'll see a replay here of Sainz round the outside of Giovinazzi. A very risky move, honestly, to go round the outside of turn 3, because all it takes is a slight clip from the other driver on the inside of you, and you'll be straight into the barriers, just like Ocon in 2018 when Raikkonen clipped him. As Verstappen now starts lap 24, Hamilton has now dropped 2 seconds behind Sergio Perez. There's now yellow flag in sector 3. Now it's been quickly cleared. And Sergio Perez has now done the fastest lap of the race. A 1:45.6 for Sergio Perez, as Hamilton says, stating the obvious, losing ground. And I think, honestly, the only way Hamilton's going to get past is if he does another pit stop and with fresher tyres somehow comes back at Perez that way, because at the moment I just do not see how Lewis Hamilton is going to be able to overtake Sergio Perez on track. He's nowhere near quick enough in the middle sector, and as long as he's without DRS on Perez, he will not be getting past, because again, losing about half a second really in the middle part of the lap, as Verstappen now pulls his gap. Has pulled the gap a bit more to Perez over a couple more tenths, up to 3.5 seconds. And looking in a great position after qualifying, where, of course, it was a disappointing position, third when it should have been first, really. But he's in the position he needs to be in the race, and that's all that, of course, matters.
And Shez, you might have noticed that Valtteri Bottas has dropped a little bit further behind Lando Norris, and that's because he went off track at turn 16 briefly. So, just as we were saying how Bottas was having a stinker, he goes and makes a mistake on the exit at turn 16. And now, he's getting a little bit closer. And here we go, we're getting a replay right now. There you go. Does what pretty much Daniel Ricciardo did actually before the Grand Prix. Just, he locked the inside front there, didn't he? It looks like he did. Went wide at turn 16. And yeah, he's now getting closed in ever so slightly.
Oh, sorry.
By Daniel Ricciardo.
We've got a yellow flag, and it is for the greatest, and it is, of course, Nikita Mazepin reversing out of a escape road at turn 4. Yeah, and soon to be lapped by Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton. Hopefully, he can at least manage getting lapped without causing an incident, as Verstappen should be lapping him probably within the next lap or so. And yeah, Bottas has now dropped 2.7 behind Lando Norris. We'll say, look out for Sebastian Vettel, because Vettel now starting to close in on Charles Leclerc. And again, remember, Vettel very quick down the pit straight. So look out for him also. He's on much fresher tyres, about 6 or 7 laps. And Mazepin locked the inside front, and the car just simply would not turn right because of that. As the fan there pointing out the obvious of a Haas going off circuit. And I did say that I thought the first safety car would be caused by Haas. I haven't had a safety car yet, which is very surprising, but obviously I jinxed it. As Verstappen now has got DRS on Mazepin. The first safety car is most likely going to be caused by a Haas, so we are almost having one there, as we're now on lap 26 out of 51, and Max Verstappen, new fastest lap of 1:45.4, and Hamilton, 2.7 behind Perez, who is about 4 seconds behind his teammate Max Verstappen in what is currently a Red Bull 1-2. Just want to say again, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more watch-alongs like this, as we'll be doing a race watch-along for every Grand Prix remaining in the season, and a qualifying watch-along as well, so don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it there, or go to my homepage and do it there and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to smash the like button and share this stream and channel everywhere you can. And yeah, Red Bull currently 1-2, Verstappen leading and pulling the gap even further over Perez, who's now being held up a bit in the dirty air by Mazepin. Verstappen leading from Perez, Hamilton, Stroll 4th, Stroll has not pitted. And then Gasly 5th, Leclerc 6th, Vettel 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Norris 9th, and Bottas 10th. And then, of course, Ricciardo, Alonso, Sainz, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin. And your only retirement so far is Esteban Ocon. When it comes to Lance Stroll, though, he might actually come out ahead of Ricciardo because he's lapping very quickly. He's actually faster at the moment than Pierre Gasly, who is just behind him in 5th place. So Stroll actually might come out in a points-paying position, which if he does, then you'd have to say that is drive of the day from Lance Stroll. As Verstappen has pulled a massive gap over Perez on this lap. Perez, of course, being held up by Mazepin. Hamilton did gain about 0.7 of a second on that lap because of that, as Verstappen does another fastest lap, 1:45.3. And Verstappen now leading again by 5.2 seconds, and he is a full 7 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. I just want to ask you, Nib,
Yep.
do you want to have a guess as to when the last Red Bull 1-2 was?
That would be Malaysia 2017.
It was, 2016, but almost correct. Of course, it was your man winning the Grand Prix.
Yeah. Oh, I got the. I don't know why I said 2017. yeah. Of course, when Ricciardo beat Verstappen by a couple of seconds.
And
yeah, I knew the race. I just said the wrong year.
And I have to say, brilliantly held off Verstappen with some great racing through those long corners there. Sainz, by the way, has just overtook Fernando Alonso. So yeah, it's been about 4.5 years at least, almost 5, since the last Red Bull 1-2. And before 2016, the last one before then was in 2013. It's only 1-2 finish in the last 8 years. And it's soon, at the minute, looks as though it's going to be a second 1-2 finish for the team, as Sainz is now up to 12th and 10.5 seconds behind Ricciardo. Were you going to say something before I asked you about that 1-2?
I was. Yeah, the funniest thing about Mazepin going straight on was that fan on the balcony was chanting Mazepin. And then he's just gone straight on at turn 4. I think the funniest thing as well was when he was locking up, he was still trying to make the corner. It almost looked like he was going to drive straight into the barrier, still trying to make the corner. That was just so funny. And I must say, Mick Schumacher, I think, is actually doing a pretty good job. He's 5.5 seconds by Nicholas Latifi. And considering they were second off Williams in quali yesterday, I think he's doing a pretty good job there.
He is, and he's within the pit stop window of the 2 Alfa Romeos as well. So yeah, he's doing a good job, and I think he might actually be just about within the pit stop window of Alonso, or about 19, 20 seconds behind. So after 28 laps, like you said, that's a pretty good effort considering Alonso started in 8th and Mick Schumacher started in 17th. So good drive so far. And of course, Mazepin 44 seconds behind Mick Schumacher on lap 28 at 51. And like you said, very weird that Mazepin was trying to still turn in whilst locked up. Normally you need to at least, do some cadence braking before you start turning the wheel. As here is a replay of Lance Stroll. A bit of wear on the inside of his right front tyre, on the hard compound tyre. He's now done about 27 laps on the hard, as the Aston Martin crew loving seeing that.
Who's Lance Stroll? I only know him as Rick Stroll.
As he's only, I think, 18 seconds off the lead. And I know he hasn't pitted yet, but pretty good considering, again, he's on such old compound of tyres. And now look, Sebastian Vettel, like I was saying, closing the gap to Charles Leclerc. Leclerc also closing the gap to Pierre Gasly, but Vettel is closer to Leclerc, about 1.3 seconds as they're going to come to the line, maybe even 1.2. As Yeah, 1.2 seconds behind is now Sebastian Vettel. And Vettel, again, with the top end speed he has, he really could end up finishing 5th here. Another 5th place, which would be... actually, no, 4th, of course, because Stroll has to pit. This really could be a stunning result for Vettel if he can produce some of his best form. And I'm sure he will absolutely love it if he passes Charles Leclerc. Considering Leclerc was on pole and Vettel down in 11th, I'm sure he will absolutely love it if he could pass him and beat him in this race after what happened last year, as Verstappen comfortably leading the Grand Prix as we go on board with him now on the TV broadcast. He's about 6.5 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez, and Hamilton about 2.8 seconds actually behind Perez. So Hamilton almost 9 seconds behind. Actually, I think he is about... he is about 9 seconds behind, or just over 9 seconds behind Verstappen as Hamilton continues to lose time to Verstappen. And unfortunately for Hamilton, he can't really go and do that strategy of pitting for another set of tyres to come back at Verstappen towards the end, because he doesn't have a pit stop gap over Gasly, Leclerc, Vettel, or even Tsunoda, I don't think. So Hamilton, I think, is sentenced to 3rd place today. If there's a safety car, then of course it could easily, change around. But by the looks of it, it looks as though Hamilton, again, heading to 3rd place in this Grand Prix. As we're now on lap 30 out of 51, only 21 laps to go. I'd say the battle I'm looking out for here has got to be Gasly, Leclerc, Vettel and Nib. Vettel, I mean, it's took a few races, but this is definitely more like the old Sebastian Vettel. He's doing so well in that car, and given the struggles Aston Martin have had, they are really now bouncing back, aren't they, in 2021?
They have, instead of trying to protest the rules because they disadvantage the teams with a low rake, they've actually gotten on with the business, and they're starting to do very well. I mean, Vettel, this is the Sebastian Vettel that, older F1 fans know that even the Toro Rosso days, of course, the Red Bull days, this is even the early Ferrari days before 2017. This is the Sebastian Vettel that we know. We saw little glimpses of it early in the season when he was, even at Bahrain, when he was having those battles with Alonso. Of course, then he did go and punt Ocon at turn 1 in that race. But yeah, there's been little glimpses, and he's certainly shown it in the last race at Monaco, and again here today in Azerbaijan. He's doing a great job. That first stint was absolutely mega, and of course he has much fresher rubber than Charles Leclerc here, and I think this is certainly the battle to be watching out for towards the end, as Gasly is starting to now close a little bit closer to
Lance Stroll, has had a massive crash down the pit straight, and that is going to be a safety car. He's down the pit straight. I'm going to assume he's had a puncture, and that is going to be a safety car for sure on lap 31 out of 51. What a surprising moment, and what a shame for Lance Stroll. And definitely a safety car. There's debris everywhere across the straight. Might even be a red flag situation if there's too much debris. And wow, what a big crash that is for Lance Stroll. And such a shame. Running in 4th place. And there you go. Safety car deployed. Knew there would be one eventually. I was hoping for one, to be honest, given that I said there was definitely going to be one. As, is Stroll okay? Doesn't look like he's getting out of the car, unless he's just waiting for marshals to come. But that was a very heavy impact against the barriers, I have to say.
Yeah, you'd have to assume he's had a puncture. Maybe a rear left puncture. Down at the exit of the Porsche curves, because, I don't think that's a mistake he's making by himself there, that's for sure. As I think,
this is surely the top 3 are going to have to come in for a pit stop here, surely. If all 3 of them come in, they should come out ahead of Gasly, Leclerc, which of course that might help Hamilton, for example, a bit. Not yet seeing a replay. And thankfully, Lance Stroll is okay. I think just maybe a bit shaken up because, of course, it is such a high-speed section of the circuit. To have a puncture there, I mean, it's pretty scary. Thankfully, didn't happen through the Porsche curbs. Here we go, replay. And he's in the slipstream. And yeah, I think what you said, Nib, he's got a puncture and then he's spun, hit the barrier to the left, and wow. Massive accident. Thankfully, there was no one coming right behind him, because if there was, that could have been a very bad accident.
That would have been an airplane crash.
Yeah. Especially with all the dust kicked up when he had that crash. So, thankfully, Lance Stroll's okay, and thankfully, no one collected Canadian. And yeah, massive crash. Again, such a shame. He was in 4th place, probably going to finish in 9th or 10th, honestly, in the Grand Prix if he continued. Maybe it's due to tyre wear, I don't know. Maybe it's debris. I mean, that's the same part of the track, that part of the track where Bottas picked up debris in 2018 and had a puncture. But I think Stroll, honestly, go back and look at the onboard, I think Stroll had a puncture before then.
Left rear puncture, Stroll said on the team radio.
Yeah, it looked as though, honestly, he already had damage before he actually got through the turn 18, 19, as safety car. Pit entry, by the way, is closed, so they can't come into the pits at the moment. So we'll have to see when the pit entry is reopened. So I don't think there will be a chance for anyone to really come into the pits and make actual difference to this Grand Prix, as we're now on lap 32 out of 51, and the medical car brings Lance Stroll back to the pits. Let me just update some of the orders. So Stroll, of course, is out. Alonso up to 12th there. And then you've got 2 Alfa Romeos now in 13th and 14th. 2 Williamses in 15th and 16th, where they started. And the 2 Haases in... hold on. Let me try and do that again. So Alonso up to 12th. And then it should be Giovinazzi in 13th. There you go. And then Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin, and Stroll and Ocon are now out of the Baku Grand Prix. So, now we're on to safety car conditions. It is Max Verstappen leading from Sergio Perez 2nd, Lewis Hamilton 3rd, Pierre Gasly 4th, Charles Leclerc 5th, Sebastian Vettel 6th, Yuki Tsunoda 7th, Lando Norris 8th, Valtteri Bottas 9th, and Daniel Ricciardo 10th. And I will say, even though that was a bad moment there for Stroll and Aston Martin, given that Vettel is on, I think, the most fresh tyres in that top 10, I think he'll be very happy there's a safety car, because he might actually give him a better chance of getting a higher position than what he has currently, which is, again, 6th position. As just a replay, again, of Lance Stroll having that terrifying crash.
He's been very unlucky with punctures, hasn't he? Of course, he had that massive crash at Mugello last year. And wow, that's a massive crash. Thankfully, it didn't happen through the Porsche curves.
No.
Because I think that could have been even worse.
It would have been, yeah.
Man, that's a massive crash.
Would have been an even harder impact than it was there. And yeah, thankfully he's okay. And thankfully, no damage done to him, as he's back in the pits now. Looks fine, but he's probably a bit shaken up. Interestingly, you talk about the puncture he had in Mugello. He was actually quite shaken up by that puncture in Mugello, and I think it did contribute. Also, he did have I think COVID as well just after that. It did contribute to his dip in performance towards the end of the season, because he was running in a strong position. I think he was in P4, P5, going for a podium.
He was in 4th.
Yeah, and then
Ricciardo was right behind him.
Yeah, and then through that really fast right-hander at the end of just a full flat-out section, had that puncture, and yeah, was a very scary moment for him, and actually ended up causing a red flag. It did, of course, as the barriers needed quite a fixing after that. But the safety car has now picked up the cars, and I think we will have to wait a brief moment for Mazepin, I think, to unlap himself. I think they will probably allow that, because I think he's the only car that's been lapped so far, so I think they'll allow that. Also, this safety car, this is very good news for Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari, of course, who had that lock up down the escape road at the castle section, and now could get back into the Grand Prix and possibly nick a couple points in this race.
Well, I think, Chaz, this is the perfect opportunity for me to go to have a toilet break, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes, because I think we're going to be underneath a safety car for quite a while, because you need to get a truck to get a car from that position, is saying Chris Medland on Twitter. So, yeah, I think we're going to be a while here.
All right, okay, no problem. As Verstappen and, again, Perez leading the way under these safety car conditions. And then, of course, Hamilton, Gasly, Leclerc, Vettel, Tsunoda, Norris, Bottas, Ricciardo, your top 10. I'm just going to quickly, off mic, have a bit of a cough. And I think I will quickly read out some comments from the chat whilst we are under safety car conditions. Has pit lane reopened, asks Rowan. I don't know. Don't know. The only way I'll be able to tell is if, someone comes into the pits. I haven't seen any messages come up saying pit lane open. Haven't seen anything like that yet, so I can't say. And by the way, again, just to stress, nobody has pitted under the safety car. Nobody has pitted, as there's a Haas there, I think, smoking a bit. And, no one has pitted. And I don't think anyone really wants to pit now because, again, couldn't come into the pits when you ideally would want to because of that accident. Because the pit entry was closed, and I think still is. And also, because now the pack is closed up, there's nothing to gain, everything to lose. So, yeah. For Lewis Hamilton, this is his chance. If he's going to get second, which I think realistically, second is his best result he can get here, then he's got to be right on Perez's gearbox on this restart when it comes up. I don't know when it's going to come up. I'll let you guys know when it is, but not coming up yet as we're now on lap 34. Just forgot to update that. So let me just quickly do that. There you go. Oh. There you go. Lap 34 out of 51. So yeah, Hamilton has got to be right on the back of Perez because if he's not, then it's just going to be the same as what he suffered in the last few laps where he's just not able to keep up in the middle sector or have the DRS down into turn number 1. Again, though, do look out for the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel because he has the freshest tyres in the top 10 by quite a distance, I think by 4 or 5 laps. So look out for him. He might actually be able to finish in the top 5 yet again, which I don't think anyone, honestly, thought that was a remote possibility. Let me just quickly, though, move these pictures on to a different set. Talking of Aston Martin, there you go. Nice rear end shot as pit lane entry is now open by race control. So I'm going to assume the car has been cleared away for that to happen. But, yeah, we're not going to be underway probably for another 2-3 laps at the very least. If not, probably 4 or 5. So we'll probably have a 10 to 12 lap sprint to the end as Nikita Mazepin now is allowed to overtake. And yeah, they've now cleared the car away, which is good because we might actually now get underway a bit quicker than I thought previously. Still, though, probably another couple laps just to make sure the debris is cleared away. As we're now on lap 35 out of 61, only 16 laps left of this Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which has been, so far, I'd say decent. I wouldn't say it's been a very good or great race, or even really a good race, but yeah. As some movements down the order, Fernando Alonso, Antonio Giovinazzi, and I think Russell and the Williams have come into the pits. Yes, they have. Alonso, Giovinazzi and Russell come into the pits, so they are going for it now. And Mick Schumacher, so they're going to go for it. As Russell... Has Russell come out ahead of Mick Schumacher? I think he has. Mick Schumacher has actually stopped in the pit lane now. And I don't know if he's had... Oh, I'm going to guess. As the safety car is going to come in at the end of this lap, I'm going to guess that Mick Schumacher did not have a tyre properly fitted on the Alfa Romeo there. But yeah, Alonso has come into the pits. That means that Nicholas Latifi at the moment up in 13th place with Alonso 14th. And then you've actually got Raikkonen 12th. Just got to make sure I correct that. And then Latifi 13th. And then Alonso is in 14th with Giovinazzi 15th, Russell 16th, and then Schumacher is currently 17th. Is still ahead of his teammate, even though he's been wheeled back in to the pits.
It seemed like Mick's front left wasn't on correctly.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see a bit of movement there.
Oh, a bit. I'm surprised that hasn't come immediately off. That's remarkable.
So he's in trouble there. Still ahead of his teammate, despite that. As now, the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. And we've seen it before, because you're not allowed to overtake on the safety car restart until start-finish line. We've seen... Remember Sebastian Vettel 3 years ago, waiting to the very last point before letting go of it. And one thing Max Verstappen does not want to do is to give anybody a run on him. So he will wait as long as humanly possible before letting go of it and going into turn one, hopefully for him and Red Bull in the lead. But what can Lewis Hamilton do, who has probably the quickest straight line speed of that top three pack, as Verstappen and Perez warming their tyres up? When will Max Verstappen go for it, as they've gone past the DRS activation point? Verstappen's still warming the tyres up, still not quite to the finish, to the start-finish line yet, as they're about to start lap 36. When will Verstappen go for it? Now he goes for it just before the start-finish line, and Lewis Hamilton now gets a run on Sergio Perez. Perez on to defend to the inside, but he does not get the move done. Gasly locks up. Will that let? And Sebastian Vettel goes up to 5th ahead of Charles Leclerc. Now has a run on Pierre Gasly's Leclerc. Almost hits Vettel with a double lockup. That was terrifying for any Aston Martin fan out there. As now Vettel has a run on Pierre Gasly. Hamilton has a run on Perez, but Perez stays ahead, and Sebastian Vettel does not get ahead of Gasly. But will he get a better exit than the Frenchman? He does, but it's not enough to get ahead. But Sebastian Vettel up to 5th, and thankfully, Charles Leclerc did not go straight into him. Bottas has now gone down to P11 behind Sainz and Ricciardo. So Bottas having an awful restart there. And now he's behind Alonso. Alonso's on the soft compound tyre. Bottas falling away, and Verstappen already 2.1 seconds, and he's now Raikkonen passes Bottas. I don't know what's happened to Bottas. Maybe he locked his tyres up or something and he's suffering with grip. I don't know. But Sebastian Vettel up into 5th and looking in a great position to possibly go for 4th position here on, like I said, the fresher compound of tyre. As Leclerc down to 6th, Tsunoda 7th, Norris 8th. Carlos Sainz somehow back into the points in 9th. Daniel Ricciardo 10th. Fernando Alonso, what a restart he had. He was 14th on the restart. Now he is in P11 on that soft compound.
Softs.
Yeah, he absolutely is. As here we go, Sebastian Vettel right in the slipstream. Pierre Gasly for P4 round the outside. And Sebastian Vettel, for the moment, is in 4th place ahead of Pierre Gasly. What a drive by Sebastian Vettel. Now on lap 37 out of 51 here in Baku. And now, hopefully for him, he can pull away from Gasly. And maybe, who knows, he can get after Hamilton ahead. He does have 7-lap fresher tyres. And the pace difference is not absolutely massive. So we'll see. what happens there, but most likely he will come home fourth if he can maintain that. But what a drive from Vettel as Alonso, up to P11. Here's a replay of Vettel. So Gasly locks up. Leclerc simply just didn't, to what I've seen there, did not have warm enough tyres. And then a replay of Leclerc locking up both front tyres. And wow, that was so close to a accident there of Leclerc bouncing Sebastian Vettel straight into the barriers. And Nip, Aston Martin will be so thankful Leclerc did not go into the back of him.
Yeah, a bee stick in it, that's for sure. My lord, that was close. Thankfully, Leclerc got it slowed down just about in time, and just now we're seeing a replay of Vettel getting past Gasly on the straight. And Vettel, it's the reason why he's in P4 is because of that tremendous first stint he did. He had the tyre advantage. As here we go, Alonso went up the inside, and then there goes up Kimi up the inside of Bottas through turn 9. I think that is. That's pretty remarkable to make a move there.
Absolutely is. Great to see Raikkonen still fighting away at Grandad's age, as now we're on lap 38 and Max Verstappen has a clear dominant lead of about 3 seconds or so. And Vettel now has pulled over a second to Gasly. As I said, he has the much fresher tyres, about 7 laps fresher than Gasly and 9 laps fresher than Leclerc. So it was expected that Vettel was going to be making moves, maybe not that quickly, on the restart. As Bottas is now in 13th position. Giovinazzi is 14th. Latifi 15th. Russell is 16th. And then Schumacher is 17th, with Mazepin still somehow almost a lap behind, even though Schumacher was in the pits for about a minute. So I don't know how that's possible. But now, Verstappen, 3.5 seconds clear of Perez, and Hamilton has not been able to make any ground on Perez and is now over a second behind Perez. And I'd have to say, yet again, he's going to fall into the same pattern of not being able to get anywhere near close enough in the middle sector to then have DRS down the pit straight in the final sector. As Sebastian Vettel only 2.2 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, and Gasly 1.5 behind Vettel, and Leclerc about 1.5 behind Gasly, and Yuki Tsunoda now is just about within a second of Charles Leclerc. So we'll have to look out for this, because Tsunoda in a good mood clearly this time. Hopefully will be able to make a move on Leclerc. As Hamilton now does have DRS down the pit straight on Sergio Perez. Will he go for a move down the inside? No, he does not. He feigns for it, but Perez does not fall for that, as Verstappen does a new fastest lap on lap 39. As now Giovinazzi has passed Bottas. What has happened to Valtteri Bottas? How is this happening? As Giovinazzi now 13th ahead of Valtteri Bottas, and now the next person to make his day even worse is George Russell, who is on much fresher tyres. That will be embarrassing if that happens, as Russell has just overtaken his teammate Nicholas Latifi. As Tsunoda did get kind of close, but not close enough to Leclerc at the end of that straight, as Verstappen continues to put in purple sectors and is continuing to put his seal of approval on this race win, surely, that's coming up, unless there's an issue for him, as Hamilton about 1.5 seconds now behind Sergio Perez. Here's a replay of Giovinazzi not just overtaking Valtteri Bottas, doing it comfortably. Bottas having nothing to defend with down the pit straight. And then just after that, you can see Russell passing Latifi down the inside for what's 15th place. And Russell only about 1.5 seconds, maybe just over, behind the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas, as Verstappen continues to lead. Another fastest lap on lap 40 out of 51. The 1:45.1. Hamilton does not have DRS this time, as Sebastian Vettel is maintaining about a 2 to 2.2 second gap behind Hamilton. as Yuki Tsunoda continues to be on Leclerc's gearbox. He is within a second of Leclerc, and it would be vital for AlphaTauri if they could make a move on Leclerc. 5th and 6th for them would be a stunning result for the AlphaTauri team, and again, vital for them in this season.
I've just seen on Twitter quite a funny tweet that Bottas should have stayed at the airport in Finland.
I don't understand why it's like Imola. He's literally getting worse. How is this possible? We know his race pace is not renowned, but how is he getting worse than qualifying? Qualifying was bad, but this is absolutely, honestly, this is a sackable offence, this Grand Prix. It really is. He has no speed at all. He's now 2 seconds behind the Alfa Romeos. Only one of the Alfa Romeos is pitted, so you can't make that excuse of fresher tyres. What has happened to him? Again, this race by him. Maybe I'm being a bit overboard, but in that car,
a little bit.
14th place in this car, and he's not even had any real, issues to talk about. Hasn't made a mistake, hasn't had any damage, yet he's down in 14th place and his teammate is only 3.5 seconds off the lead. Or actually a bit further than that, probably 5 or 6 seconds. It's absolutely absurd, honestly. As Verstappen, now with about 10 laps to go, there's another new fastest lap of a 1 minute 44.8. So Verstappen consolidating the lead out front. Hamilton still not able. He's got DRS again, which is good, but not really able to make a move on Sergio Perez. As Kimi Raikkonen is now, interestingly, within a second of Fernando Alonso in the battle for 11th and 12th position. Raikkonen hasn't pitted. Alonso has for soft compound tyres. I'm quite miffed as to how Raikkonen's able to do that. As Hamilton, again, in the middle sector, continues to fall away. But what a result this would be for Sebastian Vettel. 4th place. This would put him in the top 10 of the championship. It wouldn't keep Aston Martin in 5th in the Constructors, because at the moment, AlphaTauri are going to take that, because AlphaTauri on course for 16 points and Aston Martin on course for 12. And only 1 point, of course, separating them before this Grand Prix. So AlphaTauri are on course for 5th. Again, in the Constructors, but what a result. 4th place in the Aston Martin. If they can keep improving that car, you never know what Sebastian Vettel could do later in the season if he's doing this now with a car that's still not that great. As Hamilton still does not have DRS. He's just over a second behind. As Verstappen has now stopped setting the fastest lap of the race. But at the moment, if it stays the way it is with his fastest lap point and Hamilton down in 3rd place, then Max Verstappen will come away with a 15-point lead, I believe, from this Grand Prix. So looking very good for Max Verstappen going into the French Grand Prix, which I think, that Grand Prix, things I think will be quite a bit different. I do expect Mercedes to be stronger there, but with the races coming up after the French Grand Prix, 2 races at their home circuit, the Red Bull Ring, Red Bull, you have to say, at the minute, looking very, very strong in this championship battle. As Lando Norris now within a second of Yuki Tsunoda in the battle for 7th and 8th position. We'll see if Norris can get close enough, as Tsunoda is, dropped a bit too far behind Charles Leclerc. So he won't be making a move there. Gotta say, I know Leclerc was surprised by his lap in qualifying, and Ferrari were a lot quicker in qualifying, of course, than they have been today, but very surprised that Ferrari have ended up this slow compared to qualifying, because barely finishing in the top 6 they are at the moment, which that is not something I expected at all. I thought at worst for Leclerc, probably 4th, but 6th is, again, quite poor for them, considering where they started the race from, which was 1st and 5th, as Norris is within a second of Tsunoda as he comes through the Porsche curves. He won't. I don't think he'll be able to make a move. He is gaining in the slipstream now. He will have DRS, but I don't think he'll be able to get close enough there. But he will make himself close enough for the next DRS zone in between turn 2 and turn 3. Norris desperately wanting to get past. Of course, it would help McLaren in the constructors. They are still, I think, going to lose third in the constructors at the moment. McLaren on course for 5 points and Ferrari on course for 10. So yeah, Ferrari at the minute will take third in the constructors championship by about 3 points, I think, at the moment. And Norris, of course, desperate for those extra couple points, which will really help towards the end of 2021. And really, that's the only real battle on circuit. We hope that Hamilton can try and get within a second of Sergio Perez, but again, in the middle sector, simply Hamilton not quick enough, not close enough. Perez, as Sebastian Vettel now, I think, just hanging in there for fourth place. And I've got to say, Pierre Gasly has also driven very well. It's going to be now his second consecutive top 6 finish in Formula 1 this season. Of course, 6th in Monaco. And at the moment, looks as though he's going to be 5th in Baku. And of course, next Grand Prix is his home Grand Prix. I'm sure he'll be keen to keep this up, as Norris will still be, I think, just about within a second of Tsunoda, but not close enough, I don't think, to go for a move. As on lap 44, Lewis Hamilton does a new fastest lap, which is important, of a 1 minute 44.7. So, again, that is important because it does give Hamilton an extra point that might be very important at the end of this season. As Norris still can't really get close enough to Tsunoda to really make him work for that 7th position. But it looks as though, Nib, Hamilton settling in for 3rd, so I guess the fastest lap point is the only thing he can really try for now.
Yeah, and it certainly helps that he gains about at least 0.3 of a second down the straight on Perez, so he gets a bigger toe as well. So that's certainly helping Hamilton get his fastest lap. But Yuki Tsunoda, this has been a fantastic weekend by him. Obviously, he had his crash in Q3, but 7th, certainly his best weekend, certainly since Bahrain. Currently on place for 7th place if Lando Norris doesn't get ahead of him or if he doesn't make a mistake. So obviously, that move to Italy has certainly worked out pretty well already. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny. Some people on social media were writing him off already after, five races into his career. So it's good to see Yuki have a good race weekend and perhaps shut up the idiots on social media.
Yeah,
because that's what they are, idiots.
Yeah, absolutely. People writing him off after 5 races. And yeah, after the first race of the season where he was very good, very stupid to do that, as Max Verstappen now gets the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 44.4. As we're now on lap 45 and 51, I think Hamilton will just about have DRS here on Sergio Perez as the old foot tap is going, because we're getting very close to the end of the race, and he is hoping that Red Bull can get this 1-2, because not only for the Drivers' Championship Verstappen will it be important, but it'll be very important for the constructors, also for Sergio Perez, who's heading for his first podium as a Red Bull driver, as just seeing a little square box on the broadcast of Raikkonen, forcing Alonso to defend into turn 3, and I think Alonso's soft compound tyres have gone, because he's now fallen quite a bit behind Ricciardo, so I think Alonso might be lucky to stay ahead there of Raikkonen, but yeah, it's also very important for the constructors because Red Bull at the moment are heading for 44 points and Mercedes only 15. And of course, Red Bull led by 1 point coming into this race. So they're going to have a 30-odd point lead in the constructors coming out of this race as it stands. And, like I've said, Verstappen at the minute will have a 15-point lead in the championship if he does maintain the lead of the race to the checkered flag and get the fastest lap as well. Looking great for Red Bull at the moment, but still plenty of time to come for Hamilton to get within DRS and possibly upset Sergio Perez. I have to say, though, Perez is driving so well in the Red Bull. To be lapping around, similar speed to Max Verstappen. He's only 4.5 seconds off, and he's been maintaining that really for the rest of the Grand Prix. And again, to hold off Lewis Hamilton and perform how he has after qualifying, it's been a very good performance by Perez. As Kimi Raikkonen now going to go for the move of Fernando Alonso? No, he does not. Raikkonen goes a bit wide through the mid part of turn 1. And now Antonio Giovinazzi is right behind him. And Bottas, thankfully, starting to close the gap in a very high, for him, 14th position. As Sebastian Vettel is starting to drop quite a bit behind now, Perez and Hamilton. I think I'm just pushing that bit harder now to get home in the positions they are in. And yeah, the only battle really on circuit is Alonso, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. Hamilton still is struggling to get within that second in this middle sector. And I know, Nib, people will say, well, Mercedes should have gone for a higher drag setup. But if you remember, with that higher drag setup in practice, Mercedes were nowhere. So this is really the best they were going to do, wasn't it? Third in this Grand Prix. Well, they could have done better than this, of course, second if Hamilton didn't have that stop. But given the pace of the Mercedes this weekend, there wasn't really a possible win-win situation again, because with lower drag... Max Verstappen! Max Verstappen's had a puncture! Max Verstappen is out of the race on lap 47 out of 51! What incredible... It's very similar to the crash of Lance Stroll. And Max Verstappen is out! Wow, Verstappen out of the race, and surely that's a safety car as Sergio Perez inherits the lead. Surely, Nib, that is a puncture, just like Lance Stroll.
Holy mac and cheese balls.
What a moment that is. Massive moment in the championship, and he is out of the Grand Prix. I jinxed him, I'm so sorry. With all the talk of the lead he was going to have. Because now Lewis Hamilton, of course, at the minute, will retake the lead of the championship. And why is there not a safety car? Still just a yellow flag in Sector 3. Surely there's got to be a safety car here. But it is Sergio Perez leading with about 4 laps to go. With Hamilton second, now Sebastian Vettel in third place for Aston Martin. And Max Verstappen in a great position. Loses it. Don't know why yet. I'm going to assume it's a puncture. Haven't seen a replay as of yet. But Max Verstappen in the first big moment of the season is out in Baku. And Hamilton will retain. Yep, safety car comes out. And Hamilton
looks
now...
Looks like left rear puncture again, Chaz.
Yeah, I think it is. And he kicks his tyre. Maybe it's tyre wear that's causing it. I don't know. Maybe it's debris. I just don't know. We'll have to find out after the race.
Sorry, that was quite funny, him kicking his tyre there at angle.
Let me just try, and whilst everything is kicking off, try and update some of this order. So Perez, and here we go, down the pit straight. And yeah, clear puncture, like you said, left rear. And into the barriers. And Verstappen out in Baku, again in the first real big moment of the season. And Lewis Hamilton, as it stands, and I think honestly the race will probably end under the safety car. Hamilton is going to retake the lead of the championship and will be leading by 14 points. Wow. That's how quickly it could fall away from you. And yeah, you can clearly see it on that slow-mo replay. Him losing the rear end. Nothing he could do at that higher speed. Anyway, Perez leading. Hamilton second. Vettel third. And then Gasly fourth. Leclerc fifth. Yuki Tsunoda now up to sixth. Norris seventh. Carlos Sainz eighth. Ricciardo ninth. Alonso 10th. And then Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Bottas, Russell, Latifi, Schumacher, Mazepin. And safety car will go through the pit lane as Bottas and Russell have come into the pit. So actually Latifi is up to 13th. And Bottas and Russell down to 14th and 15th. That could be a big factor in the championship this season. And that is a massive blow for Red Bull and Max Verstappen. And, well...
I'm still in shock, Chaz.
I am as well. I thought it was... I'll be honest, I thought it was basically a certainty that he was going to win. He was looking so comfortable, wasn't exactly taking risks or anything like that. And just like that, puncture, bang, out of the race. Just wow. Just wow. That's the only thing you can say. At least for Red Bull, they have still got a car in the lead. That's the advantage of having a 1-2. So if something happens to one of them, or the main one, that you've still got a good backup. But Lewis Hamilton, I'm sure, will be a lot happier now, even if he does finish in second, now that that's happened for Max Verstappen. It just shows you, doesn't it, Nib, how quickly things can swing. Because again, Verstappen was on to lead the championship by 15 points. Now as it stands, Hamilton will lead by 14 points. It just shows you, doesn't it, how big these moments are. And that really could be a massive moment. Red flag now. I'm going to guess the race is over. Yeah, massive moment, isn't it?
Absolutely massive. And I feel so bad for Max Verstappen. He hasn't put a foot wrong this entire race. And boom, there goes his tyre into the wall. It remains to be seen whether or not it's a Pirelli issue or if there's some sort of cutting on the tyres from the curb or something like that. I'm sure we'll see in the coming days. But for there to be two tyres go boom down that straight is pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. It's not a nice feeling at all when it happens at that speed. As they've just gone over now to lap 49 out of 51, but the race has been red flagged. I don't think we'll get underway again. Do you think we'll get underway again? I don't see why they would bother.
Well, that's the thing, right? I think the reason why they've red flagged this is they want to actually complete the final few laps. So they want to get this cleared and then do the final 2 laps. I assume that's why they've decided to red flag it.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, if they lap 50 and 51, yeah, that's a good idea if that's what they want to do. And that point where Verstappen had that crash, that's the highest speed part of the circuit by far. Maybe just after that, you could argue is, but that's about where the engine is topping out on speed. So that's why it's just so terrifying when something like that happens. And thankfully he's okay, but his championship bid has took a hit. And I be honest, I don't really know whether that's tyre or whether that's the debris, possibly, or if it's tyre wear. He was pushing very hard before then, setting fastest laps. I don't know if maybe that was the cause. Maybe he was pushing too hard. I don't know. We'll have to see after the race. As Nicholas Latifi is being investigated for something, I don't know what it is. But yeah. I mean, he pitted on lap... 11? Lap 12? Can't really say at the moment. Can't really say, but there you go. Massive moment. And the TV broadcast is now currently showing Sebastian Vettel on the screen, who at the moment is heading for 3rd place if he can hang on in those final 2 laps of racing that I'm going to guess they're going to try and do. I'm sure Red Bull and Mr. Horner would love it if they just said, yeah, race is over, because last thing they need is Perez possibly losing to Hamilton, because if Hamilton was somehow able to get through, that would be literally the icing on the cake of misery for Red Bull. As, yes, go on.
Well, wasn't this whole sort of thing about the changing of the floors so that we didn't have this sort of situation? And then look at this, Verstappen was on 29 lap old tyres, Stroll was on 30 lap old tyres, and both of them have gone boomski. And in 2019, the C3 compound, it's the same tyre. They've actually been hardened this year. 44 laps it did at this circuit, so what on earth is going on here?
Yeah, we'll have to just see after the race with the analysis and all, because the problem with Baku, I mean, if this was a normal racetrack, you'd say, as they've now put out a yellow flag for some reason in Sector 3, normally, if it was a normal racetrack, you would say tyre wear caused that, but because it's a street circuit and debris is very much a possibility, it's hard to say, because it could easily be a bit of debris. Again, remember Valtteri Bottas in 2018, basically the same part of the race, wasn't it? Very, very end, ran over a piece of debris on the straight and then ended up having a puncture at just about the same point.
Well, Christian Horner was just saying to Helmut Marko on the pit wall, I think it's just a tyre failure. It was at the end of the life. It's the exact same issue they failed on Stroll. I think it's a tyre issue.
Right. Well, if that's the case, then that is, like you said, that's not good enough, because the tyres should be able to do at least, say the hard compound, should be able to do at least 40 laps, I think, around here. And here we go, replay now. Stroll, lap 31. Just to remind you guys, if you're just tuning in, it is lap 49 out of 51. We do have a red flag, and hopefully we will have lap 50 and 51 completed under green flag conditions. And, yeah, well, if that is a tyre issue, if that's a Pirelli issue, then I think they're going to be under a lot of criticism after this race, because that's not what you want to see. It's very scary when it happens at such higher speed. And the next circuit we go to is quite a important track, I would say, for tyre wear, Paul Ricard. And has some long, fast corners. Remember the right-hander at the end of that chicane, which, that's another corner. I mean, they do have miles of runoff, but still, it's not a corner you want to be going through and have a puncture through. So, yeah, they need to, if that is an issue, they need to fix that and possibly bring a harder compound set if it's just the tyre is too soft. Remember as well, I was kind of surprised that they brought this weekend the softest compounds, C5, C4, C3. I thought normally to this race they'd bring the C4, C3, C2. Because in the past here in Baku, they've never brought the softest compound. They brought the second softest as the softest. So I'm surprised, quite frankly, they brought the softest possible tyres for this race. And I think that might have played a factor, because remember, that compound that he was on, Verstappen, was the soft compound tyre in Spain and Portugal. So, again, very aggressive tyre choice.
As you might have just seen, there was Red Bull to FIA radio message, and Jonathan Wheatley was saying to Michael Massey, there was no vibration, there was no warning of this happening, so we should red flag it so that other tyres don't go. And then he's red flagged it. So and Jonathan Wheatley played the role of the FIA race director. And this is the reason why we've got the red flag, so everyone can change tyres. And honestly, for safety, it is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
There you go. Jonathan Wheatley, the new boss of the FIA. He's taken over Michael Massey.
New race director, yeah. Well, yeah. Very smart decision. Very, very smart decision. To be honest, if they had not red flagged it, I think we would have had a safety car finish anyway, so I think we would have been fine. Yeah. But, if they want to have the best option possible, which is, a couple laps of racing without scary tyre failures, then I think, the best option is red flag it now and possibly get a couple laps in. Of course, just to remind people, when the red flag comes out, the timer that runs for the race does stop. So, of course, there's a 2-hour time limit on races, but it stops when the red flag comes out. And the red flag came out about, 7 or 8 minutes ago? So we've only got another 20 minutes, 25 minutes left, I think, of that 2-hour time limit. So we're fine if we do get going again. And drivers now just waiting to see what's going to happen in terms of any restart of this Grand Prix. Let me just read out some some comments in the chat. Arthur asks just why F1 goes for harder side of Alonso and Perez. That graphic saying that Perez is on the soft is wrong. He's not on the soft, he's on the hard compound tyre. Of course, they're all now going to change tyres and probably go on to the soft. But, Perez was not on the soft compound tyre before Verstappen had his incident. Let me see if there's any other comments here that I can find. Lewis is going to go for a Lewis and take the lead from Checo straight away and win if it restarts. I so want Checo to win. He deserves it. There's Blade Rise. Morris Powell. I think Mac's problem should be blamed on the team. What's wrong?
Did you just see then? Latifi didn't go through the pit lane.
Oh,
he continued straight past the truck.
Right, well, that's going to be a penalty then.
That is a slam dunk penalty.
So, he's in 13th at the moment. On the restart, if there is a restart. But, Morris Powell just saying on the chat, problem should be blamed on the team. They should have known more about the tyres. That criticism is valid, but they thought, like all of us, the tyres would go, the distance that, they were told by Pirelli they'll do. They pitted on around lap 11, should be able to get 35, 40 laps out of the hard compound tyre. And it was, 40 laps, I think, to the end from when he pitted. Plus, we've had 2 or 3 laps of safety car, so he would have, saved his tyres then some life. And, look at Lance Stroll. Started on a fresh set of hard compound tyres and had a puncture after 30 laps. So, yeah, the team, maybe you could argue they shouldn't have pushed it so hard, but they had to pit when they did. They had to because of Hamilton's pit stop issue. If they didn't pit then it would have resulted in Red Bull not being in the position they were in, which was a 1-2. They had to do what they did. Can't really blame them. This is on Pirelli. Again, the tyres, the hard compound tyre around Baku should do about 35, 40 laps. And we've seen in the past with Pirelli plenty of times where they've said that and it's ended up doing even more than what they've said it's going to do. So I'd say this really is on Pirelli if it is a tyre issue indeed. Because the tyre should not be failing that soon when it's, the hardest compound.
I literally just said that Jonathan Whitley said to Michael Massey that they had 0 warning on the tyre going. So, I mean, if you're blaming the teams, then I don't know what to say.
Well, yeah, exactly. If they had a warning, then maybe, they would have pulled him in just to make sure they came home with points. But, you know what I mean? It's like you said, there's no warning. If you have no warning of an issue, you can't then just magically anticipate
then people
it.
Be like, what are you putting for?
Exactly. So there's just nothing they could do. It was just a freak tyre failure. I think the same with Lance Stroll, a freak tyre failure. Nothing that could be done about it. You don't know you're going to have an issue. I mean, some teams now, especially with the tech they have, they're able to see an issue before it actually happens on track. But there's plenty of times where, you first find out about an issue with your car, say an engine problem or a tyre problem, until you've actually had the problem on track yourself, say an engine blow up or a tyre failure or a front wing failure. Again, these things happen. If they had no prior warning, then I don't see how really they can be blamed for that, as FIA communicating with the McLaren. Don't know what they were saying. Were you listening into that, Nib, or no?
I was not.
Okay.
I'll probably see on Twitter shortly.
Right. But hopefully the race will get going again. Because if they're not going to get the race going again, then what is the point in waiting on a slate? As discussions going on through the pit lane about what to do. And I think I'll put some different pictures back on screen. But if we do get going again, and they intend to get racing as soon as possible, then we should have, again, 2 laps of green flag racing, lap 50 and lap 51. Hopefully that does happen. Again, a reminder of the order, that if we do get going again, just a reminder of what the order is. Sergio Perez is currently heading for his first race win as a Red Bull driver and his second race win of his career. Lewis Hamilton is in second and heading for regaining the lead of the championship. Sebastian Vettel third, heading for his first podium at Aston Martin. Amazingly, from P11 on the grid. Clearly, Vettel is the driver of the day. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Pierre Gasly fourth, Leclerc fifth, Tsunoda sixth, and then Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, Alonso completing the top 10. And then the rest of the order that are still finishing the race: Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Latifi, Bottas, Russell, Schumacher, and Mazepin. And your retirements, critically, Max Verstappen, Lance Stroll, and Esteban Ocon. But we wait to see what is going to happen. Still, we haven't even heard of, whether there'll be a decision at a certain time yet.
All right, so I'll tell you what McLaren were trying to do. McLaren were trying to get Tsunoda a penalty. But Michael Massey has had absolutely none of it. He said, "We believe the entire field should be penalised for not slowing for double yellows. All of them are obvious. Lifting a bit is not enough, and I'll tell them at the next meeting." So the whole field's going to get a stern talking to by Michael Massey.
Well, hopefully that's the case, because, not respecting the yellow flags is obviously not a good thing, as there's a big circle on track or ring where Max Verstappen's car was. And we just await basically the resumption of this Grand Prix again. No news of the race going ahead or getting back underway as of yet. But let me try and read out some more comments in the chat. Make sure to keep them coming during this red flag period.
And I also wanted to say that Williams were telling Nicholas Latifi to not go in the pit lane. So that's why he actually went on track. And just to let you know, Sebastian Vettel has brand new, fresh, soft tyres.
Ooh. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not. I just had a very quick vision of the finger making a reappearance.
I know, and for so long I hated that bloody finger as a Mark Webber fan, so I'd absolutely love to see it today.
Currently Vettel heading for 15 points. He'll be 10th in the Drivers' Championship if he does finish where he is. Just trying to do some calculations. So Perez heading for the race win. Red Bull will still extend their Constructors' Championship lead to, I think, 9 points or 8 points. Lewis Hamilton will take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Ferrari will take third off of McLaren at the moment. Ferrari heading for 14 points. McLaren are heading for 8. And of course, only a 2-point gap between them. So Ferrari heading for third. AlphaTauri are heading for 20 points, which is a massive points gain for them and could really put them a bit more back into the action in the Constructors' World Championship. They would take 5th in the Constructors if they do get that, with Aston Martin dropping down to 6th, even though, of course, they'll gain 15 points with Vettel, and then Alpine, at the minute, only gaining the points with Alonso. So, of course, they would remain in 7th. Then the rest of the order, of course, Alfa, Williams, and Haas. As we just await what's going to happen. Has there been any word on Twitter as to when a decision's going to be made about when the race is going to happen?
No, there's not.
Well, I'd love it if they let us fans know, because this is very boring, of course, waiting to hear any news.
Yeah, I mean, the track's clear, isn't it? Verstappen's car is gone. There's no debris, so I wonder what exactly is the hold up, as now George Russell is a part of the Aston Martin racing team there. He's just taken a nice little seat there. Okay, so I'll just read out for those who are on new softs. So we've got Daniel Ricciardo, who's got a set of new softs. Sebastian Vettel does. Oh, well, Lance Stroll certainly does, but he's, of course, no longer in the Grand Prix. Esteban Ocon does.
Sorry, race will be resumed in 15 minutes.
15 bloody minutes. Wow. Then we've got Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, and then, well, I mean, the Haas's and the Williams. So, yeah, Ricciardo, Vettel, perhaps the ones to watch out for.
And obviously, the people you read out obviously started outside the top 10.
Yeah, which, obviously Ocon's no longer in the race as well, which I completely forgot about because I was like on the first bloody lap.
Very, very long time ago. Yeah, so we'll watch out for Vettel and see what happens there. And yeah, they're just showing on the TV now. So Ferrari going up currently into third in the Constructors, ahead of McLaren. It'll still be a 4-point gap, so McLaren are not out of it or anything. And then AlphaTauri would go up to 5th, but they're still about 55 points behind third, which is a long way to make up. They'd have to basically have another Monza 2020, I think, to get back into the action there. Most likely, AlphaTauri's best hope this season is 5th in the Constructor. Same for Aston Martin. So the race will be back underway, as I said, in 12 minutes' time at 18:10 local time. Of course, they're 2 hours, or 3 hours rather, ahead in Baku compared to the UK. So, of course, it is 2 minutes to 3 here in the UK. So, yeah, in 12 minutes' time, the race will be back underway, and it should be, hopefully, 2 racing laps left. At least 1 racing lap left here in Baku. As some of the drivers now get their crash helmets back on. Prepare yourselves, guys, for what could be a very exciting finish to this Grand Prix in Baku. And who knows what could happen in the fight for the lead and the podium. Will it finish Perez winning from Hamilton and Vettel, or will there be a massive surprise? And will there be an amazing result? We'll have to see. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be a very interesting finish to this Grand Prix. Let me just read out some comments here before we get onto the resumption of racing quickly. Crystal Racing saying if only Alfa Romeo, if only they had a car that could qualify well. Indeed, because they're currently P11, P12, and their race pace has been decent, I'd say. Let me find some other comments here. If I can. Crystal Racing saying Vettel driver of the day, definitely. Even if he somehow has an issue, between now and the end, yeah, driver of the day, clearly. He's been amazing. To come from P11 to a podium, stunning drive from him. Also, Keith Haas saying Tsunoda did great today. He has, currently in 6th place. A top 6 finish would be a massive result for him and would put him right back in play in the Drivers' Championship in terms of comparison to other midfield drivers. Of course, not for the very top of the championship, but he doesn't want to be finishing down in, 15th, 16th at the end of it all, at the end of the season. And if he does get 8 points, he will have then 10 points in total for the season, which is not too bad, considering that if Sebastian Vettel finishes on the podium, Vettel will have 35. That's only a gap of 25 points, which over the course of a season, Tsunoda could easily make up. With the AlphaTauri looking certainly as quick, if not quicker, than the Aston Martin. As the race underway again in just under 10 minutes time. Got Verstappen will never be champion. Doesn't have the self-discipline to maintain his equipment at every race. What an awful, stupid comment that is.
I think he's just trolling. That has to be a troll comment.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, because let's not even discuss why. Rowan asks, will it be a standing start or behind the safety car? I think it will be behind the safety car, or will it not? No, it'll be a standing start.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Nothing on Twitter as of yet.
At Imola, we had a red flag, and there was a standing start there, wasn't there? After the red flag.
I honestly can't remember.
I'll be honest, I can only just remember that race, which was only, 2 months ago, but yeah, I think we had a standing start, so I think it will be that again, which make things even more interesting if that is the case. I'll have to make sure I catch any notification on the screen about a standing start. I think it is. Pretty sure it is. But again, race underway soon in about 7 minutes or so. By the way, whoever said that comment, I think, was it Rowan? Thank you for pointing that out, because I forgot about that. So yeah, thank you very much for that, pointing that out. Because, yeah, that standing restart, I guess you could say, really could be a thrilling end to the Grand Prix. Mark Orlando says Vettel is really redeeming his image at the moment. He is. Reshuffle or reset the field, asks Jason M. No, it will be, in the order that they are in. Of course, Perez, Hamilton, Vettel, Gasly, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo, Alonso, top 10. So, yeah, it'll be as it is. Let me see if there's any other comments now I can find. Yeah, Kartik M making the point we've made. Red Bull had told the FIA that there was no warning about the tyre failure, which is why the race was suspended. Keith Haas, can Russell pass Bottas? That would be an embarrassment. It definitely would. Bristol Racing says, I have a horrid feeling that this race will decide the championship, the Drivers' Championship. No, I don't think it will. Because, Hamilton, at the minute, will go back into the lead, but it will only be 14 points. It's still easily overturnable, considering the speed and momentum of Red Bull as of late. So, again...
It's just back to pre-Monaco.
Yeah. But again, we've got 2 races coming up at the Red Bull Ring where I think Verstappen has got to be the favourite there, considering he's already won 2 races there and possibly could have won, or at least been close, last year in the first of those races. So, yeah, I think it's definitely, this is not going to be, I hope it's not going to be a championship deciding moment. Of course it could be, but I don't think it will be, because again, we have so much left of the season. This is only the 6th race of the season of what hopefully will be 23 races. As they're just showing...
Have to be about 20 races in Europe, as we were discussing a little bit earlier.
Yeah. thankfully,
I mean, we could just do about 30 races in America with full crowds because, America.
Yeah, could do. But they're talking about an extra race in Austin.
That would be a good idea, to be honest.
And possibly Indy as another option as well.
You think Pirelli tyres are going to last there?
Oh, let's not even think about it. We've now got, 5 minutes to go until the restart.
Standing restart, Chazza. Standing restart.
Yeah, this is going to be good then. Standing restart. Perez, can he hold on the start? Got to watch out, though, for Sebastian Vettel because, wow, he could do something amazing if he gets a great start. He really, really could. And again, remember, he has one of the highest top speeds down the straights. So if he's close enough to anyone ahead, then he could do the unthinkable. And we'll see, of course, what the rest of the field does. I mean, they'll all go on to the freshest compound they have. But of course, the people who started outside of the top 10, as Nib said, who are still in the race, such as Vettel, Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Latifi, Russell, Schumacher, Mazepin, will be able to have a fresh set of soft compound tyres. Right, let me find final couple comments, and then we'll get into the restart of the Baku Grand Prix in Azerbaijan. Let me just see if there's any good ones I can find quickly. Astro Stevo saying shades of Mansell in Adelaide 1986. I never thought of that, and that is actually true. It is a similar incident. I don't think it'll be as critical as that one back then, but it was similar. Except Mansell at least could bring the car finally back under control back then to park it down the escape road. Verstappen was just a passenger in what was a very scary accident. But yeah, there are some similarities there. And some do say that they are very similar, those two, Max Verstappen and Nigel Mansell. Serugara, just to remind you, who asks about the 2-hour time limit. Again, during a red flag period, the time limit freezes. So we still have another 25, 30 minutes left, I believe, of the 2-hour time limit. So it should be fine for the rest of the Grand Prix. But I'll just get rid of the red flag symbol up there on the ticker. And again, it is lap 49 out of 51. And we have 2 racing laps left of action. Of course, lap 49 will basically be a formation lap with the safety car leading the way. And then lap 50 will be the first lap of the restart, and of lap 51, of course, will be the second and final lap of the restart, and the final lap, of course, of the Grand Prix. And we are going to be getting underway in 2 minutes' time. Nib, do you think there'll be any moves? Any serious moves here?
Vettel's winning the race.
Oh, honestly, I hope he does. It would be so great if he did. Realistically, though, do you think anything massively different's going to happen?
I don't know what's going to happen, Chaz. I really don't. I think Ricciardo might move up to at least P8. Although if Ricciardo has a classic Aussie start, probably not. But, I mean, Vettel on that fresh rubber, mate. I don't know.
Yeah, let's... we might be building ourselves up here for a anticlimax like qualifying has been so many times.
Every single qualified this season, yeah.
And now we're looking at the TV broadcast at Sebastian Vettel. Into the eyes, and I think he will go for it if he can, but as long as he maintains third, I think he'll be very happy with that, because again, started 11th, probably could have qualified 8th or 9th, honestly, in qualifying yesterday had he not been affected by a red flag. And now showing great speed. If only he did start in the top 10, maybe who knows how close he would have been to Perez and Hamilton before Verstappen crashed. As the race... Go on.
Yeah, as Hamilton was just saying on the team radio, we've got to remember this is a marathon, not a sprint. Got to be measured how risky we go. That's what Hamilton was just saying on the team radio.
Well, that sounds to me like he's content. And 10-second stop-go penalty for Nicholas Latifi for failing to drive through the pit lane, which, understandable. Yeah. His team massively at fault for that. But understandable from Hamilton because, again, he will retake the lead of the championship and he doesn't need to go take a silly risk against Sergio Perez, who, is desperate to win, of course. His first race for Red Bull.
Before he sends it up the inside of Perez.
Well... I only think he will if he thinks that he has a very good chance of getting it done. I think if it's a bit of a 50-50, I don't think he'll go for it because, again, too much to lose in that situation. But we'll see, as they are now back underway on what is a final safety car lap before we get the final 2 laps underway here in Baku. Everyone, by the looks of it, on the soft compound tyre. Lando Norris, for some reason, is miles behind the front 6. Don't know why. Maybe had some trouble getting running out of the pit lane. But, this hopefully is going to be a wild finish to what has been a decent race in Baku. I wouldn't say this has been a classic. It's been a decent race. Certainly better than the Monaco Grand Prix. And definitely better than the race in Portugal as well. But not a great race, I have to say. But you never know. With the way this finishes, could end up being a great moment here. And, Sebastian Vettel is going to win the Driver of the Day vote. And, of course, wins it from us. I think I can speak for you, Nib, in saying that he is Driver of the Day, can't I?
Oh, undoubtedly. I think if Vettel hadn't had this ridiculous race, then it would be absolutely Perez. But yeah, I think absolutely has to be Sebastian Vettel.
Great drive by him. Can it get his result even better? 3rd place, what a result that would be. But again, he has a fresher set of soft compound tyres, and you never know what could happen ahead, and it could lead to something great. But as long as he finishes in 3rd, that's all he's got to make sure to do, really, is finish in 3rd place. Because, of course, we have to remember he does have some very quick drivers behind. Gasly, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Norris, Sainz, Ricciardo. So he has to make sure that he, maintains his position. It's all great looking ahead to make up positions, but he's in such a brilliant position for the team that he cannot afford to lose a podium for the team after the great work that he's put in to this Grand Prix. As they now come to the final, onto the pit straight now, through the final corner of the circuit, and Sergio Perez, as the safety car comes back into the pits, Sergio Perez now becomes pole position man for the standing restart of this Grand Prix in Baku. And we'll see whether Perez can hang on for his first podium for Red Bull. And not just that, his first race win for the Red Bull team. As they now slowly but surely come up to the grid. And I may as well just put it as lap 50 as over 51, which they have done now. They have just crossed the line, but they now line up on the grid. Perez, as Latifi, obviously out of the race, basically, because he has to take a penalty. So he's basically out of this Grand Prix. Yeah, lap 50 out of 51. 2 racing laps to go. Let's see if Sergio Perez can hang on for victory, whether Lewis Hamilton can take what would be a vital win, and whether Sebastian Vettel can get a podium, as Lewis Hamilton's brakes are, on fire, quite frankly. And are we hoping for the restart very quickly? Here we go. Here are the lights. It's 3 lights. It's 4 lights. It's 5 lights again. And restart is now. And Lewis Hamilton down the inside. Lewis Hamilton, though, locks up and goes off. Hamilton's lost so many positions. He's basically out of the race, and Lewis Hamilton has bottled it at a critical moment as there's a Ferrari going wide there. Sergio Perez is in the lead, and Hamilton has bottled the chance to take the championship lead as Perez in the lead from Vettel second, and in third place now is Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. Charles Leclerc up to fourth. Lando Norris round the outside of Yuki Tsunoda. And Norris is into fifth place for McLaren. What a result that could be for them. As Yuki Tsunoda is sixth. What a restart by Fernando Alonso, who's now up to sixth place ahead of Tsunoda. What a restart by Fernando. And Tsunoda trying to go round the outside in the corner before the castle section. But Alonso up to sixth. Tsunoda seventh. Carlos Sainz in eighth place. Ninth is Daniel Ricciardo. And in 10th place is Kimi Raikkonen. But wow, Lewis Hamilton now down in 16th place and last. What? How on earth did he do that? Was it because of his brake smoking? I don't know, but how on earth did he make that mistake? He got the lead and then just went straight on. And now, as we enter what is going to be the final lap, you've now got Gasly and Leclerc here very close for the podium as Leclerc pulls to the outside. Can Leclerc get ahead? Yes, he does, but Gasly gets back in the slipstream. Can Gasly go down the inside on the final lap for the podium? Gasly does, but will Leclerc come back on the exit? Leclerc now gets back in the slipstream. And will he go around the outside of turn two? No, he will not. Lando Norris is in there. Could Norris get a podium? What a result that would be. As now, Leclerc gets back in the slipstream of Pierre Gasly and goes to the outside. Will Leclerc get a podium for Ferrari? No, he will not. As of yet, and Norris now comes through. Will Lando Norris be able to get a move done here? No, he will not. Tries his best, but Leclerc not offering a way through. But can Norris now go round the outside? No. And wow, what a final couple laps here as Gasly just about hangs on. And there you go. So Gasly maintains third critically for the AlphaTauri team. I'm trying to do the rest of the order quickly as Nicholas Latifi actually is still, for some reason, in 13th place. And then you've got... actually, that was Russell who came into the pits right before the race restarted to retire, sadly for him. As it's Mazepin 14th, Schumacher 15th, and Hamilton 16th, as Sergio Perez now enters the final sector. He has had a decent start to his Red Bull career, but now it's about to get even better. He is about to get his first podium for the Red Bull team, and his first race win in Baku. And his first race win for Red Bull, Sergio Perez, comes to the line and wins in Baku. Sebastian Vettel finishes second, Gasly third, Leclerc fourth, Norris fifth, Alonso sixth, Tsunoda seventh, Sainz eighth, Ricciardo ninth, Raikkonen 10th, 11th Giovinazzi, 12th Bottas, 13th Latifi, 14th Schumacher, 15th Mazepin, 16th Hamilton in retirement. So Russell, Verstappen, Stroll and Ocon. What a result here in Formula One. And what a day as Perez parks up. I'm guessing he has ran out of fuel or had a problem. But there you go. As actually Latifi drops down to 16th, of course, with his problem. But Nib, sorry I couldn't bring you in there, but there was so much going on. But wow, what a restart. And how critical for the championship now that Hamilton 15th, he's finished.
I can't believe that's just fucking happened. What did I read of what Lewis Hamilton was saying? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So what does he do? Sebastian Vettel, what was it, 2018, locks up, goes straight on, and scores no points.
Wow. Just, wow. So Max Verstappen somehow still leads the World Championship by 4 points, and Red Bull and Max Verstappen have got out of jail so badly here. Of course, Hamilton, his fault, he made the mistake, but wow of Max Verstappen. He'll be breathing the biggest sigh of relief in human history after Lewis Hamilton made that mistake. Red Bull continue to build upon their Constructors' Championship lead. Red Bull now lead in the Constructors by 26 points. Perez now into third in the championship. Aston Martin on the podium. AlphaTauri on the podium. Just wow. That's Formula One at its absolute best. Any final thoughts, Nib? And also, what would you rate this race out of 10 if you could?
Well, Jesus. I mean, after the first round of pit stops, it was quite boring, wasn't it? Until we had the Stroll crash, and then we got Vettel overtaking Leclerc and Gasly, along with Bottas falling back through comedically. But Jesus, bloody Christ! The final part of that race will go down as I don't know. It's unbelievable what's just happened in the last hour of this Grand Prix. I don't believe what's just happened. I don't. I'm very, very shook. I mean, who would have thought that we'd have this podium? Perez, Vettel, Gasly.
I know.
What on earth?
I don't think anyone predicted Vettel on the podium, even coming into the weekend. Wow.
Chris Medley, after yesterday, was saying he was going to win the Grand Prix, so
he was close.
He was close. It was close. To be fair, I did say Perez was going to win in Discord earlier. Of course, I did not predict that, but yeah, that's going on Twitter.
What would you rate this race out of 10? So like a 7 or an 8, something like that.
Yeah, maybe a 7. Yeah. I think you got to look at the whole race overall. It wasn't too great. I'd go with a 7. But I think we can say thank you, Baku.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Baku. Thank you so much. I'd say probably 7.5 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 at most if you're going to predict that. But yeah, I'd say 7.5. That's what I would rate it as. Not a great race overall, but a good one. And I'm so happy I got to say for Sebastian Vettel on the podium. Great drive, easily driver of the day. Guys, quickly, in the live chat, let me know what did you think of the race, and also what is your rating out of 10 for the Grand Prix? Let me know quickly before I come off the stream. Just going to indicate the race is over on the screen. There you go, race over. Perez wins from Vettel, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Alonso, Tsunoda, Sainz, Ricciardo, Raikkonen. Also, shout out for Alonso. He went from 10th to 6th on the first restart lap. Wow, what a restart that is. Wow, what a result. And that really shakes things up, doesn't it, going into the next Grand Prix. And remember, we have a triple header coming up, starting in 2 weeks in Paul Ricard. And the Paul Ricard track does have some track changes. So, well, a great moment to see Alonso congratulating Vettel there. Yeah. Triple header starting very soon, and I cannot wait.
Thanks.
Let me just read out some comments quick. Some ratings out of 10. Abteen says 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Astro Stevo says 7 out of 10. Let me see if there's any others here if I can. 8 out of 10. Vettel driver of the day, says Vincent Otis. Vettel driver of the day agreed. But yeah, keep, if you can, some more ratings for the race coming before I come off the stream here. I will say we've been live for almost 3 hours, so do need a bit of a break, to be honest, after that manic end. Nick Dubbin says 9 out of 10 for the second half of the race, 7 out of 10 for the full race. Willem says 8 out of 10. I think, yeah, definitely a 7 to an 8, probably, for the Grand Prix overall. But guys, thank you very much for coming along to the race watch along. And thank you very much for tuning in this weekend to the content. Don't forget, I will be live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. UK time for a full race review. So if you want to find out why Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll had their tyre failures and just what happened, as to why everyone finished in the positions they did. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, bottom right of the screen, or go to my homepage and do it there. And importantly, hit the notifications bell so you can come along to that stream tomorrow again at 7 p.m. UK time to catch the, I guess, warm down or low down on what happened here on Sunday. Again, thank you very much for this weekend. As well, don't forget to smash the like button, share this stream and channel everywhere you can, and don't forget to join Discord as well. Link below in the description. Best place that is for notifications for my videos and streams. Also, Nib, thanks for you coming along, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, hopefully, for a triple header that's going to be a very exciting one with 2 races at the Red Bull Ring, which normally delivers, doesn't it, in Formula 1?
Well, yeah, we're going to, of course, have a fantastic start to the triple header at La Castellet, of course. It's going to be tremendous, isn't it, Chazza?
Yeah.
But yeah, can't wait for the triple header. Can't wait. We had so many triple headers last season. I've kind of missed them. Felt like every month we had a triple header. So yeah, I can't wait. And thanks, mate. That was a tremendous watch along today. Absolute madness, and I think a race that we will remember all season long.
Absolutely, and it might have, again, a massive effect on the World Championships. And guys, yeah, that's been it for today. And until tomorrow's race review from this race, this mental finish here in Baku, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.